Hello and welcome back. It is time for another long-form discussion on Lord of the Rings. We already did Fellowship of the Ring. Now it's time for the Two Towers, the exciting yet admittedly flawed middle chapter of the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
The thing that I feel most about the Two Towers, which I regularly call the Twin Towers, and I have to stop myself before I start. It's bad. Is that I could right now do the same in-depth discussion that we did at Fellowship of the Ring, and I saw that longer ago than Two Towers. I'm having to make myself remember bits and pieces of Two Towers. It's a little bit.
It's
a little spotty.
It is undoubtedly a middle chapter. Middle chapters tend to be the weakness, which is why Empire is always interesting to me, is because a lot of people think it's strongest. But it's not as strong as Fellowship of the Return of the King. We'll get into this. So, who you just heard, that was Nathan Velasquez. He's the producer for Off the Bench. You all seen on the show. And then to my further right, we have Mr. Brian Wood.
If you're watching, then
Brian.
it's to his left.
Okay,
yes.
yeah. Sorry. But, most people probably listening, watching, whatever. Welcome in. Brian hosting Movies on the Brain podcast. Brian, how can they subscribe on iTunes?
Just find us on iTunes. It's at Movies on the Brain. We've been going hot and heavy for over 200 episodes now.
Yeah, consistency.
We try.
Over 200 episodes.
Oh, yeah, man.
How long have you been on?
4 years.
Okay, nice.
Him and Chad have been holding down. Shout out to Brian's partner in crime, Chad Metz.
Yes, indeed. And thank you, T-Bob, for the invitation to come back and to have this long-form discussion. I know we said it was going to be a week. It turned out to be much longer than a week, but I am all here for the running action sequences and palace intrigue that is the Two Towers.
Yeah, we got so we wanted to have this all done before Christmas, and just because life.
That's
and other
right. This
stuff
was going to be a holiday thing.
and we got in trouble a little bit. It didn't happen, but you know what? It's happening now, so that's fine. So we talked about Fellowship for 2 hours. Today we are going to break down Lord of the Rings: Two Towers. We're going to do it in a similar fashion. I figured out how we did it before. We kind of just went chronologically, right?
Yeah.
Beat by beat. Go through the film. What stood out to you? What didn't? What we liked. There's probably Fellowship felt like it was almost all just a purely positive celebration. This is a more flawed movie. I think there will be more criticisms in this. And then once we make it through Two Towers, then we will be on to Return of the King. And so it should be noted that we are going to talk about the Two Towers extended editions. And
Which add about 45 minutes to the theatrical cut.
Yes, long. And actually, it's a much better movie than the theatrical cut, in my opinion.
I started watching the theatrical cut on accident when I was watching this, realized about half an hour in, and then had to go back, started the extended version, which I realized flows. At least the first, which I guess 30 minutes is about an hour whenever you get the extended edition. It flows so much better. I mean, there's much more to it, but the rhythm, there's much better rhythm.
Yeah, you can tell that they, just because of pure kind of modern movie constraints, they had to make a lot of cuts they did not want to make from this Two Towers movie that made it a worse movie. I've always described Two Towers base cut as maybe a B or B minus movie, and I think that the extended edition maybe bumps it up to a B plus, kind of A minus type of area. I think it's a pretty significant upgrade. In fact, we will talk about what is my favorite of all the deleted scenes. Of all the scenes that were added back in is in this movie. So we'll break it down. So like we said, and this is mainly going to be about the movies, Peter Jackson, behind the scenes stuff, not a lot of book talk in this film. We're going to be speaking on the film. So let's start then. Let's start with the movie starts, which is what I think with a very nice storytelling mechanic. When you're what's the first thing you learn when you're in elementary school about writing, right? It's you want your first sentence to grab him, right?
Hook him.
You
got to hook him with that thesis
get him
sentence.
with some action. And so what does Two Towers do? You open with these beautiful sweeping shots of the mountain, then all of a sudden you dive into this mountain crack and you're right back there at the Balrog fight. And it's effective for so many reasons to me. First off, it's a great action scene to start things off. But secondly, so if you're thinking about it, if you're a theater goer or however you're watching these movies, there could have been some time between the time you watch Fellowship and Two Towers. So it kind of does this kind of quick and dirty reintroduction of these characters. Oh yeah, remember this? And then they use the same shots from Fellowship when the Gandalf and Balrog fight until the Balrog grapes Gandalf down. And then what I love is instead of following the Fellowship, we get this new perspective, which although it's Frodo's dream, so like what actually is true or not in it, whatever, we get this new perspective of Gandalf, what happens to him after he falls, and you go down the hole and he's fighting the Balrog, and it's just like a really good action.
I feel like it carries. Yeah, it is just a dream, and it is kind of it feels just like a shame that you weren't actually seeing what was happening. But it does feel like you are like Frodo. It might be more than a dream to Frodo. I mean, he's got the Almighty Ring on. He could be getting some type of vision of something that happened. So whenever, at least the first time when I saw it in theaters, I thought it was a dream, but it could have something more.
Well, and I don't know the answer there. So that's a question we should play with. Is it a dream or not?
It is a legitimate thing. It's in the appendices. The story of how Gandalf and the Balrog fight and how he ultimately defeats him. And of course the trippy scene that comes later in the movie about how he transitions from Gandalf the Grey to Gandalf the White.
Yeah. And they end up. What's fascinating though is because if we count Frodo's dream as more of a vision than a dream, that means they literally battled. And Gandalf says this, but they battled from the depths of the mountain to the very peaks. Like they fall all the way down to that underground lake, and then they end up fighting all the way back to a peak where eventually Gandalf finally slays the Balrog.
Which Peter Jackson stated that at the time, there are a couple things to highlight here. First, when I rewatch the extended cuts, I do so with the director's commentary, so that I can add some kind of different perspective to our conversation.
Okay, that's nice.
Originally, New Line came to them and was like, we need another prologue. We need another 7.5 minute, very detailed, this is where we are, catch everybody up kind of thing. And Peter Jackson and Fran and Penelope were all like, you know what? No. Like, we had so much of a headache with that the first time. No, we just want to focus on this Gandalf thing. We feel like it'll be enough. Like, I mean, the movies are only a year apart, and the DVDs come out in August and in November. So, it's not like these movies were, it's something like an Avengers movie where they come out.
Yeah, no, it's not 3 or 4 years.
apart.
That's a good point. For me saying who knows how long it is, it's actually way shorter normally than you talk about from sequel to sequel.
The theatrical cuts always came out in August on DVD, and the extended cuts always came out
December,
in November.
right? Yep.
And DVD. And Jackson repeats multiple times throughout Jackson, repeats many times throughout the commentary, hey, we do these extended cuts and we release them like 6 weeks before the film comes out so that people have them so they can watch them so they can be even more informed when they go to see the next film. Because there are small things. For example, in the opening scenes with Sam and Frodo, they use the Elvish rope.
Yep.
Well, the Elvish rope isn't anywhere near.
See, I always forget that Galadriel's gifts weren't in the Fellowship-based version.
In the Fellowship cut. In the theatrical cut for Fellowship.
Oh, okay.
So if
that would be confusing.
Right, so if you didn't see the extended cut of the Fellowship, you had no idea where those things came from. Now, it doesn't add to or detract from your enjoyment of the film.
It is interesting, though, because by the end of Frodo's journeys, you see Galadriel's gifts save him a total of three times.
I'm so excited to see the spider.
Yeah, which actually...
Whoa. We're getting way ahead of ourselves here. Way ahead of ourselves.
So basically...
No Shelob talk yet.
So basically, there was a shot. They flipped some of those shots around from Fellowship.
Yeah.
For the opening of Two Towers. And when they were falling into the lake, the Balrog was supposed to become kind of like this slime Balrog, kind of this melted creature.
Okay, that could have been cool.
That was going to cost them an extra $50,000. And so they were like, you know what? We don't necessarily need that. They had storyboarded it out. They had planned for it, but they just didn't have the funds for it, so they pulled it out, which I thought was interesting. And as far as like what's going to guide our conversation going forward in this film, in this movie, Jackson and Fran and Penelope say at the very end, because the commentary goes all the way through the credits, they say in the credits that like because they had to do Academy Press and the BAFTAs and everything else for Fellowship, they were 6 to 8 weeks behind the entire time they were developing and working on Two Towers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's quite a sprint. I can't really imagine the. He's married to Fran Walsh, right? I cannot imagine Peter Jackson and Fran Walsh really being able to go through that type of thing. And I know they did it with The Hobbit and survive a relationship like that unless you're both working on it together.
Yeah, and I mean
that's quite a hustle.
And when you hear about Jackson's workload on the original movies, especially, I mean, this was a decade of his life, and his days. I mean, he would wake up writing, doing re-edits to the script, Then he would start shooting. Then at the end of the day, he would go straight to the editing room, and he would sit there and edit all the shots together. Sit down with the editor and put it all together. I mean, it was a 24/7 multi-year grind for Jackson.
And on top of that, having to do, you're getting rave reviews, so you're on the awards circuit at that point as well, like you're saying, Brian. It's intense.
6 to 8 weeks behind. It's already a logistical nightmare trying to manage all that.
Yeah, they said they felt like they were 6 to 8 weeks behind the entire time. And that's why they admit in the credits that they had the toughest time cracking the story for Two Towers, figuring out what to leave in and what to take out, how much dialogue to put in, how much dialogue to take out. And another interesting thing that they talk about in the commentary is Peter Jackson, Fran, and Penelope all bring up the idea of a television series, post trilogy for ways for New Line to make more money, and B, they bring up the idea of a 20 or 30 or 40-year anniversary DVD box set of a re-edit of the trilogy in chronological order. So that scenes that were, for example, like Aragon and I'm blanking on her name.
Arwen.
Aragon and Arwen in the death scene where she's at his graveside. That's the flashback or the flash forward, as you will, because that's actually in the appendices.
Yeah.
That scene would then go at the end of Return of the King. The shots of them talking before the Fellowship go off. Those I
don't know.
It would be a Herculean task.
If they want to do it, sure. I'm always down to watch new Lord of the Rings stuff, but that, I don't know, man. That seems like it could. It seems like it could not be worth it. Like, there's a reason why you break things up from chronological order, and it's because from a storytelling perspective, it can be more satisfying.
And they openly admit they messed with this book more than they did either the other two. Because there are certain points that you need to change around.
And I don't hate all the changes, and we can get into some of those changes. I will say this: hearing that 6 to 8 week behind thing, it is kind of a nasty foreshadowing for the problems that I think doomed The Hobbit, which is where The Hobbit was even more seat of your pants, less time writing, and it's something that you see all the time. Like, not to go off too much of a tangent here, but True Detective Season 1, incredible. True Detective Season 3 has been incredible. Season 2 was crap. Why? Because they didn't give him the time. They're like, we need a season now. He didn't have the time to really flesh it out. And from a writer perspective, especially where your writing can always get better. Like, you're never really done writing something. Eventually, your deadline just comes up. Like, you can always fix things, take away things. You can always write better, write more. Time is key. So,
which is why, like, when we talked about last time you were over here, how we'd love a Paul Thomas Anderson movie every single year. I used to be that way. I want that man. If he needs to take another 6 years to make a movie, I'm fine with it because he needs his time.
Yeah, exactly. I've said it with video games all the time as well, because there's always kind of delays. I would rather a studio delay and get it right over rushing it out and getting it wrong. And honestly, sometimes there's like fiscal responsibilities to shareholders and other things like that don't allow you to do that. But in a perfect world, creators would be given that time.
And Jackson says in the commentary, too, that there are certain scenes that he talks about, and we'll get into that later, that were literally not storyboarded out, just literally shot haphazardly, and they went back and they basically front to back the scene digitally to make it work.
Yeah.
And he also says there were literally times where actors were showing up on set and they were like, I need to see what you need me to do. And they were like, we don't have it yet. And they were dropping scripts off to him at night in their hotel room.
Yeah.
So, like, they openly admit that Two Towers was the biggest crime.
That's really funny because that sounds like a lot of what they did on The Hobbit, and it just blew up in their face there. All right, so Gandalf and the Balrog, that's where we open. They fall. The second they hit the water, we wake up, and suddenly we're back, and we're with Frodo and Sam. And to me, it is a very effective, like I said, storytelling technique because it reminds us immediately where we came from. Kind of reminds us of those characters, and then
it's one of the biggest questions that you have. What the hell happened to Gandalf? It doesn't answer it, but it's nice that is kind of that thirst is satisfied.
Well, it also just, to me, it immediately reminds you. They all split up, and Frodo isn't with Gandalf anymore, and Frodo and Sam left everybody else at the end of the movie, and that's right, they're heading towards Mordor on their own. I like the trudgery of these scenes. I think they do a good job of getting across just how hard the path through the Iman Wheel is supposed to be. It's very dark, very foggy. It's kind of stifling feeling. It doesn't look like there's a lot of like vegetation or life anywhere. They're going in circles. They're very confused. They have no idea what to do. I think that point out the rope is important because we're talking about extended editions. I do love the fact that in the Fellowship of the Ring, when Galadriel gives these gifts to the hobbits, Merry and Pippin get knives, and then Sam gets rope, and he's like, well, I mean, do you have any more of those knives? And like anybody would feel that. The knives are like jewel encrusted, and they look awesome. Like this is just rope, but rope proves to be the most effective tool for what Sam and Frodo are trying to do.
Indeed. And, the marshland scenes, which are coming up shortly thereafter, are some of the most evocative, Alan Lee paintings and such. I love what they were doing there, trying to just establish how hard and difficult a task this is that Frodo is.
I think that too. I love the scene where Sam drops his spice box, and you get a kind of used salt box. You get a look into the unending optimism of Samwise Gamgee. The fact that he could be on this journey, he could look off into this and see this giant volcano they're trying to walk directly into, all the evil that surrounds him, knowing he has the most evil trinket in the world around his best friend's neck, and he still thinks like, we're probably going to get home. We'll eat a nice meal on the ride home.
Yeah, it would probably only be a hobbit that would be able to have that type of outlook.
That resiliency.
Yeah.
Unbridled optimism.
Yes, which is a key theme of the Hobbit character. What did y'all think about Gollum's intro? So as we are following Sam and Frodo, and they're very frustrated, you see somebody creeping in the background. You saw him creep a little bit in Fellowship, but you didn't really see anything beyond a pale gleam of the eyes. And then all of a sudden, here's this creature crawling down the wall. How did you think his intro was handled?
Oh no, I thought it was great. And whenever he ends up showing up, he's not as. There is a little bit of a struggle, but he's identified as this rather weak-ish character, and I really liked it. I thought that it set up enough so that you still have a feeling of his dual nature that's going on, but it identified the little bit of the Smeagol side that comes out later on. Which I liked.
I definitely enjoy Gollum as a whole, and
He's my favorite thing about this movie.
But
he was like pop culturally, he was the biggest part of the movie.
In Circus, it launches Circus to unknown heights. I mean, they talk in the director's cut about how the casting director sent them a bunch of voiceovers, basically, because they were at the time they were just looking for the voice of Gollum, and that they sent the videos of the guys talking, and like. Circus was the only one.
Didn't they see his face and like his physical movements?
He was actually getting into it, and he was moving, and he was gnashing his teeth, and he was using the accents. And they had to go through many, many permutations on that because New Line was concerned about what I call now a Bane situation, where like you couldn't understand your main character.
Well, I still don't know how Christopher Nolan improved the original Bane voice, even though like the revised Bane voice was kind of shitty. But sorry, continue.
But yes, I mean, I think the CGI on him holds up. I think the duality of his character holds up. And that moment where, first of all, Circus is there with those two actors filming that scene.
Mm-hmm.
Which also I have to say, I've talked to people, primarily older people. If you out there feel that motion capture should not be up for Best Actor, those type of performances, it's obscene. Because and the fact that this is one of the first places where they put this front and center.
The first place where it was really done to this extent.
How could you see that and not think that is as eligible, that type of performance is as eligible as anyone else that's up for Best Actor or Best Actress? He does an incredible job. Outstanding.
The dialogue scene alone with him going back and forth between Gollum and Smeagol, is just powerful acting. But there was a Alan Lee painting of Frodo with a knife at Gollum's throat.
Yeah.
And they had it on
and they
set.
recreate that,
and
basically.
They had it on set, and they were manipulating the actors to get into the position where he could get that shot into frame, which was awesome.
Something y'all are touching on here that I think is maybe my favorite part of the Gollum introduction is up to that point with me, CGI, like, yes, you had things where CGI is physically interacting with the environment, and ultimately that's how you bring it to life. I don't know, and I'm probably just speaking a bit of exaggeration here, but like, just trying to remember off the top of my head, I don't remember seeing anything at that time where you had real actors and a CGI character interacting so intimately. So when you have them fighting immediately and you have him choking Sam, right? And you see Sam grabbing his forearm, and you see his forearm digging into Sam's neck. You see him manipulating things that you know are real. I think it sells you immediately on the idea that he is real.
The only
I
thing
know
I can
it's
think of
CGI,
is,
and it doesn't look like today's CGI necessarily, but it does hold up. And I think it's because of the interaction between the physical world and the fake world, which all goes back to Andy Serkis, the fact that they did full body motion capture, and he was actually on set acting.
the only thing I can think of around the same time would be AI, artificial intelligence. That's the only other thing that I can think of that uses CGI to the extent where you're working with humans. But even still there, it's nothing like a full-on fight.
What always stood out to me, man, I'm telling you, it's that forearm. Because you can see, like, Sam's,
because it's
chin being pushed down, and then he's, like, trying to grab it, and you can see it digging into the flesh, and it just all felt so real.
Hands. It's
yeah,
Serkis's hands.
exactly.
It's Serkis's forearms. Like, you're getting the actual depth perception of humans and hobbits, and that's that kind of attention to detail. And the growth of Serkis as a performer and as a writer and as a director over the last, 20 years, I mean, the lessons he learns on Rings, he takes with him to the Apes trilogy.
Yeah.
And just expounds upon them 500 times over.
And I didn't even like King Kong, but he did a good job.
Oh, he did. But again,
King
that
Kong's
was
better
Jackson.
than Lord of the Rings.
That was Jackson unbridled, doing whatever Jackson wanted.
Yeah, King Kong's not a good movie.
No, it's a great movie. Deserved the Oscars it was up for.
I guess. We don't need to get into
Suicide Squad.
Oscar-winning
Suicide Squad
for all time.
You have not seen Moonlight,
which is the worst. This man has not seen Moonlight. Okay, so we have Frodo, Sam, Gollum. Gollum's value to the group is obvious. They need a tracker. They have no idea where they're going. He knows where they're going. But we leave that story.
That is also a great moment. Whenever they are like the moment that Gollum shows up, you would think, no, they've got to get this guy out of here.
Yeah, you got to kill him.
He's got even if he knows the way in there, that is not the right.
What's he bringing to the table?
But they do such a good job of convincing you, like, yeah, I guess you do need him, even though the deal that they strike feels so slimy, and you're with Sam, like, I don't like this one bit. They do a great job of making.
You are with Sam because there's literally never been a more untrustworthy looking person than Gollum. Like, he looks like kind of the embodiment of evil.
What is this thing?
Like, this thing will betray you 100%.
Right.
But like you said, there's a necessity there. And they established that with it. We're going around in circles. We've been here before.
Addicts relate better to fellow addicts.
So that's what else I wanted to highlight. I also can empathize with what Frodo's feeling. Because Sam doesn't have the ring. And that's not a mark against Sam yet. But he can't really understand. He can't understand what it's like.
Well, you can see Frodo realizing that even though he doesn't know who Gollum is, he knows that there's something more than how weird and evil he looks.
I mean, and they're a part of a very elite club. There's only a couple people that have been in that situation.
Right. Yeah. And Gandalf gives him that spill in the Mines of Minas Tirith that explains who Smeagol was and who Gollum is. And that's fleshed out more in the extended cut of Fellowship than it is in the theatrical cut. But he does have that background knowledge.
That's true, yeah.
And so that's how he's able to call out, the Smeagol part of Gollum and bring it out. And again, addicts, and Jackson and Walsh and Boykins talk about this a lot in the commentary. They look at the ring as something that drains you almost like a drug.
Yeah, 100%.
And so you are an addict. You are addicted to that kind of power and that kind of feeling, that rush that you get from the ring. And so these two people who can relate because they have a shared common experience of being addicted to the same drug.
And so Frodo's obviously more
sympathetic and more able to forgive and more able to assume that he will not actually betray him, because
you can still see the good in him.
It goes back to the Star Wars thing. There is good in him. I know it.
Yes, exactly. And he even says also that the ring has such a powerful hold over Gollum. He's like, the ring will hold you to your promise. So that's one of the reasons why I'm trusting you. So we establish those three. Oh, and by the way, real quick, I don't know why this popped in my head. If we referred to Lothlorien as Rivendell the entire last episode,
yes, we did.
I apologize. That's inexcusable.
Thank you, Connor.
There's nothing for that. I apologize. That's on me. So we have our three there, and this is where Two Towers gets interesting. Is that really you're telling a bunch of parallel stories? You're following all the characters from the Fellowship, only now they've split up and they're kind of doing a few different things. So then we jump from there, and now we're back with the trio, the guys, the Legolas, Gimli, Aragorn. Of course, we open.
No, I think.
And then we go to Pippin.
No,
and
we go to Merry and Pippin at that point because then we see them tracking.
Oh, you're right. You do. You go to Merry and Pippin first. Merry and Pippin have been taken by the Uruk-hai. It reminds us of what happened at the end of Fellowship. Merry's obviously a little. He's hurting a little bit. He's got a gash on his head. They're being carried by the Uruk-hai.
Being forced to drink ungodly things.
Yeah, which is so good. Which, by the way, the situation Merry and Pippin in would be terrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, they're surrounded by 100 of these scariest looking monster humanoids ever that are like rough and coarse. They're debating whether to eat them or not.
The only thing on their side is that there is an orc that is a good enough of a leader to understand that we can't kill them right now. We have to kill them later.
Yes,
so we're gonna do that. That's
Exactly.
the best thing that they have going for them.
I mean, if you actually put yourself, if you really like stop and think about it, instead of just being like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Merry and Pippin get captured by orcs. But if you really stop and think, if you were 3.5 feet tall and you were surrounded by those creatures and the way they talk, it would be terrifying. Like it's horrifying.
And that goes back to the book as well because there's the differences in the orc and the orc communities, and so you have two varying different factions here that are composed together.
Okay, so how good of a job do you think the movie did with that? Because for those that don't know,
I thought there was a very clear difference between
the ones that come
visually,
from
yes,
the ones that come from Mordor and the ones that Saruman creates.
So Saruman creates the Uruk-hai,
right,
which are the tall and kind of menacing looking orcs. And then Mordor is more of your classic, almost a little more goblin-like, a little more stunted, a little more bent, less straight-backed. But y'all definitely you feel like it got the message across that there are Mordor orcs and there are Isengard orcs working together.
Yeah, it seems like even in the way that they acted. The Sarumans were definitely more driven and were a little bit more competent.
And they can run under the sun, which the Mordor orcs can't really do.
And the white hand also helps because that's the identifying mark for lay people.
Which speaks to something that we'll talk about throughout today, but I still rewatching these movies and continuously struck by the visual design of them. Like the ability of the visuals to tell a cultural story, whether it's the Uruk-hai being immediately recognizable with, like Gimli says, their broad shields and how like straight back they are versus something more stunted, or it's like you feel like Rohan's kind of Nordic horse culture just from their armor design, or the elves like leaf-like shapes that you'll see later. It's stunning.
We'll get to it later.
Design.
What is the name of the I guess kingdom that I'm bad with all of the
Gondor
names.
or Rohan?
No, the guy who was being brainwashed that we'll get to.
Oh, that's my phone, but coming through my computer. Grima, Wormtongue, Theoden?
Yes.
King Theoden?
So
whenever we get to that's
Kingdom of Rohan.
The Kingdom of Rohan.
Yeah.
What
Which I
I
always
liked
loved.
whenever we get to that point, one thing that I love, and that's one of my favorite parts, is that you do feel like, while the design isn't as lavish as something like a lot of the other parts of the trilogy, there's a certain organization of a city that feels very built, like an infrastructure that feels very constructed, that I liked a lot. But we'll get there.
Okay, yeah.
So
Let's just so we see Merry and Pippin. They were the Uruk-hai.
Which I was so annoyed with them in, and I know they kind of have to be annoying in the first one because they're very, they're hobbits and they don't have a care in the world.
As well.
Yeah. Which got on my nerves a little bit, but I think that's more my shortcomings of that type of character that I don't like. But whenever they show up here, they've matured a lot. You can tell, just in the last, I guess, 2 hours of their own timeline.
Yeah, it makes sense. They've gone through some life experiences in the last couple hours that they've never had before. Their moment was at the end of Fellowship when they purposely made the orcs chase them so that Frodo could get away. That was kind of their first very courageous moment, first of many to come.
But they make a great transition, and in their first scene, I want to know more about what's going on with them, and I want to see them develop more.
So they were the Uruk-hai. You see him. Is this at the time when he drops the? Does he go ahead and drop the leaf here?
The brooch
bites the brooch.
The brooch falls off,
and then we open with what is almost like a movie trope: the master tracker, Aragorn. This man literally has his ear to the rock. They're hundreds of leagues away. He has his ear to the rock, and he's like, "Yeah, they've sped up." That's how much of a beast Aragorn is. I love it. I know it's a little trope worthy, but I buy it, man, because we're in high fantasy.
Oh no,
at
it's
this
great.
point.
I
I
love movies wherever they have got someone's tracker. They've got a tracker with them.
Yes, exactly.
In the long run, when you're talking about a film which includes elves and men fighting together.
Yeah.
Giant Nazguls.
Riding fell beasts.
Riding foul beast. You've got giant moving int beings.
They're so good.
You've got trees,
Which that was a little
being
unbelievable.
evil and maniacal and tying people under their roots. I mean, the idea that a guy could track individuals, kind of like a army ranger,
Well, it's like
it was not that far fetched.
Well, and it's also, but the thing is, it's also like you just accept that, like, even though there's 100 Uruk-hai, they're running from these 3 warriors because these 3 warriors are such beasts that, yeah, they could probably beat 100 Uruk-hai, which is kind of crazy to accept, right? Because orcs look so imposing. But you always got to remember the orcs. They're kind of freshly created. They're probably not as physically adept as they actually look. Like, they look very imposing. They're not the best fighters. Hobbits get a lot of kills on orcs. Like, orcs' power come from numbers, not from individual skill.
Like zombies.
Yeah, not unlike zombies, actually. So they're tracking him, and then you have. How do y'all feel about wide-angle landscape shots with people running over beautiful scenery?
Funny you should.
There's too much of it in The Hobbit, but they do a good job of it here.
The Hobbit just wasn't executed well.
Yeah.
Funny that you say that, because those shots that you are referring to, John Rhys Davies was not involved. He was not there to shoot those.
No, it was the little karate guy.
Right, and then Legolas, Orlando Bloom, had fallen off a horse and broken 3 ribs.
Yep.
And
but he did him. He did the scenes anyway with the broken ribs.
With the broken ribs. And then, of course, Viggo Mortensen and Strider had kicked that helmet earlier in filming. And so
I loved that.
He had broken his toe.
Wait, Dad, did you know the full story behind the kicked helmet?
Well, I didn't know until watching it this time. Thank you, Amazon, for that little X-ray thing, so you get the trivia whenever you scroll. But
okay.
It was very, I had no idea that whenever he kicked it, like, his reaction is, I broke my toe just now. But he plays into it. Which I love whenever, like, an actor does something in a scene and something goes wrong and they use it as like, well, I just did that, so we've got to use it as part of the story.
So for those that don't know, to jump ahead a little bit, when the 3 discover the burned pile of orc corpses, they're going through looking for the hobbits. Aragorn's very frustrated. He kicks a orc head towards the camera. They shot it like 1,000,000 times. He could not get the kick towards the camera. He couldn't line it up. He kept missing, and then finally, on the shot where it goes perfectly right past the lens, like Nathan said, when he kicks it, he actually breaks his big toe, but instead of breaking character, he uses the scene. He gives this like anguished fall to his knees. The kick is perfect. The reaction's perfect. The scene ends up being perfect. But then, yeah, that was all before he had to go run for days on end.
And he doesn't break it. I mean, I've seen that scene quite a few times, and I did not know, like, oh, you can tell that he kind of goes with his own natural pain.
So I guess all I want to say is I know that it became kind of a meme in The Hobbit, the wide-angle landscape shots and all the walking and everything. But in these movies,
it didn't break anything.
I think, no, they're incredible. They're beautiful. And I think they add the epic scale
and they're natural
that you're looking for, and they are natural. Yeah. And really, what these guys go on is one of the most legendary runs in Middle Earth history. Like the amount of sheer will, physical and mental, to push their bodies as far as they did and to run as far as they did and catch up with the orcs. It is a truly Herculean effort. It makes me cringe. I hate running. It makes me cringe to think about it. I've always felt like Gimli, like back at LSU when we used to have to run 110s. And I was terrible at run 110s. I felt it's the exact line Gimli uses. Us dwarves are wasted on long distance. We're natural sprinters. That was me. Like, put me 10 to 30 yards. That's my go-to. I don't need to run 100 yards. I don't need to run 100 leagues like poor Gimli with his short little legs.
Yeah.
Legolas and Aragorn, they're all long and lithe, and they're just cruising along. And poor little Gimli has to keep up with them. But he does it. He does it because he's tough as nails. That whole crew is tough as nails. So we open them running. They're catching up to the hobbits. And then I believe, do you go back to Sam and Frodo?
Yes.
So what comes after Sam and Frodo before we get to Merry and Pippin almost getting eaten?
Is that when they're in the marsh?
Yes.
Okay.
And then he sees the body?
The dead marshes and don't follow the lights.
I think the dead marshes were...
Who even put those there? It doesn't seem like...
It's from an ancient battle.
No, it's actually from the battle at the beginning of Fellowship of the Ring.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It is the great battle that ended with Sauron getting his finger chopped off and the ring being dislodged. Those are corpses from that thousands of year old.
And although those bodies were kind of supernaturally preserved. Marshes do, like, you find like dinosaur bones, like tar pits and stuff. Like, you can make the argument that marshes kind of, and there's also an evil in that marsh that probably keeps everything alive.
Frodo sees a little bit of evil in that marsh.
The inspiration for that, the belief is that Tolkien,
Got to be World War I battlefields.
well, World War I trenches, walking through the whole seeing the dead bodies. Shout out to our boy Nicholas Hoult, who's going to do an awesome job as hot young Tolkien in his biopic.
Yeah, we'll see. I haven't seen anything beyond the original image, but I'm intrigued. But yeah, so you go to the Dead Marshes. I think it does a very good job of, one, proving Gollum's worth, because without Gollum, there's no way you're making it through the Dead Marshes alive. He knows the path to follow. Two, it reinforced what a miserable journey this is they're on. Walking through a marsh like that would be unbelievably terrible. And then, because it's not miserable enough, of course, there has to be some supernatural evil that almost steals away Frodo.
And that's not in the book. All the, like, Jujitsu, the crazy, trippy green goblin ghost, once he gets pulled under.
When those eyes go...
Yeah, those are not actually in the book. But all those were, like, vinyl dummies that were underneath the water, except for the one guy who does open his eyes, and that guy was real. I think it's an incredibly effective cost of war image to evoke.
It's a good point.
And also a feeling that is evoked through the Ents and through other points in time, which is, this is a living place where even when something is dead, it still has life. It still has an impact. Which is a contribution to society.
Yeah, which is throughout Lord of the Rings. You think of like the Barrow-wights and the undead army that Aragorn will lead in the Return of the King coming up later. It's constantly the living, breathing world, as you said. And then so Gollum ends up saving Frodo, which is very effective because really that awkward love triangle of Sam, Frodo, and Gollum, like, this is the first of many steps to where Gollum kind of tries to ingratiate himself with Frodo, kind of prove that he is going to be loyal, and how he kind of starts to weasel in between.
Well, Sam didn't step to it when he needed to.
Yeah, he did. No, look, hey, Gollum saved the day, dude. Gollum saved the day. And then he got into the marshes. But while they're in the marshes, you get our first look at the fell beasts and the Nazgul. They're back. You thought the river killed them in movie number 1? No chance.
Killed the horses.
Well, do they show up in that scene? Are they in the marsh? They don't show up in the marsh.
They fly over.
Oh, okay.
Because they're like,
we gotta
that's
start
right.
to see what comes into play later with Frodo being able to sense their presence because of the ring and it draining all life from his body.
Would shout out Sam when Frodo's freaking out and frozen because the Witch King's back around him all of a sudden. Sam is the one that grabs him and brings him to cover so he can't be spotted.
Yeah.
And Sam also comes into play in Minas Morgul later.
Yeah,
or Minas Tirith, sorry.
The fell, I really like the fell beast design too.
I do.
It's a good kind of eel-y type of dragon.
It looks like what are those called? Like tapeworms or things that they pull out of people's bodies.
Yes, like a giant with like a fat body and wings attached.
All of these things. It's interesting to look back on Two Towers as kind of we're in this space of Game of Thrones, and interesting to see how the designs of the dragons and how this kind of myth and lure and mythology is now taking cultural root in such a prominent way again, and to see that kind of some of those forerunning of some of those designs were in Two Towers.
I'm still way behind on Game of Thrones.
And then we come on, catch up, bro. So from there, I believe then we meet Rohan for the first time. We meet Éomer. We see, so it's kind of interesting from the Dead Marshes, like you said, Brian, the kind of cost of war. Then we see a much more fresh battlefield littered with dead bodies.
Well, we get introduced to the Rohans and the leader, and they ultimately save Merry and Pippin.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones who come in and take out the orcs. And it's, when Strider meets them and is like, oh, well, yeah, we took out the group of orcs and there may have been some hobbits with them. It's, about half a mile back or whatever it is. And so when they arrive and they get to the burn pit, essentially, another war, a kind of evocative image of World War I, they believe that their friends are lost. They kick the bucket. But you get the flashback scene. You get the flashback scene of how Merry and Pippin escape.
Yeah.
And we get to see the fierceness of these these Rohan riders and what they can actually do.
I mean, yeah, they absolutely slaughter the orcs to a man, and they say that. But before we get
First of all,
there,
there's a. Oh yeah, okay. Before we get there,
but before we get there, we do have to establish, because it's important to establish Éomer, because he ends up being kind of the Deus Ex Machina a bit in the end, although it's probably not the correct application of that, since it wasn't really unlooked for. But either way, he ends up saving the day in the end. So, but we need to understand, well, why wasn't he there in the first place? So we meet him. He's bringing back a wounded body that we later learn is the king's son. And then we meet this decrepit old king. But first, we get our first look at Edoras, which, in my opinion, that's the Golden Hall. That's the town on the hill where the king lives in the middle of the valley, surrounded by mountains.
The windiest set that they dealt with the entire
There was
time.
a lot of wind in those scenes.
And it might be, which helps sell it. Like, that's why you shoot on location, because you cannot fake the feelings that you get from that location. And in my mind, that is the single most beautiful location in all of the movies.
How big is this kingdom also? Because it felt small. It felt very...
This is when I wish you would have had the map back up there.
We did have the map last time.
Because they...
See a little bit of it.
Well, what they do is, especially, and we'll get to this later on, is there is a explicit shot of them pointing to the map and saying, here is Rohan, and here's Minas Tirith.
Yeah.
And it's like, that was apparently done because New Line was confused.
Yeah.
Because the New Line execs were like, so are they bringing Frodo to Helm's Deep where they're having this battle? And so Peter Jackson literally hand drew a map and shot, his finger pointing at the two different...
It's one of the best finger points
Right.
I've ever seen in movie history.
And
whenever I think about going over a map, that's a scene that I always think about.
Right. And so basically they laid that in with the dialogue over it of them talking and really just reorienting everybody to where they are geographically.
No, but Nathan, I think if you're looking, I mean, geographically, it's a pretty big kingdom, but the deal is that it is sparsely populated.
It is a 5-day ride.
That's kind of in line with all of, I think, the human settlements at this point, is that it's almost, you're kind of an age in decline. It's not the former glories that was once known in the world. It's not as densely populated. Everything's a bit more spread out, a little more lawless. So from Rohan, I get almost a nomadic type of sparsely populated type of feel.
A farming community, basically.
Agricultural
community.
Horse-based.
It's a five-day ride from Minas Tirith to Rivendell. So that's just basically the general guide. Any place is around 3 to 5 day ride on horseback.
But to talk more about Edoras itself, that set is all real. That was all made on location,
Just the house at the top.
Oh wait, I thought they made all the houses around there as well.
No, all the houses around that on the bottom of the hill are all CG. Just the Golden Hall at the top is actually real. And they were supposed to be doing some night shooting there, and they just couldn't do it because the wind was so heavy. They couldn't get the towers locked down and all of that.
They were in, but the hill in the middle of that plain, in the middle of that mountain range, that is all real.
That is all real. And the Great Hall at the top is real. And that shot after they learn of the death of the son, and she goes out and the flag rips off the flagpole.
Yeah,
that was legit. That legitimately happened. That the wind was so strong it ripped that flag off the pole and
nice improv by nature.
Right.
Thank
Good
you,
job.
God.
Yeah, straight up. Sometimes I guess very fortuitous things can happen in filming. Okay, so we meet Éomer, takes the king's sons back. King looks pretty decrepit on first glance.
Yeah.
Grossly long eyebrows, very haggard looking, very stooped. And then I don't know if there's ever been a character, I said Gollum with this Gollum earlier, but it applies to Grima as well. Has there ever been a character who just visually gives off more of a greasy or evil vibe than Grima Wormtongue?
Yeah, he. It's kind of weird to think of it. I guess in the book, does it go into more of how he got there and how he weaseled his way? Because that's also the type of thing. If that type of guy enters into any type of government, you would be like, what? No, you can't have a private meeting with the king.
Well, but
Well, I'm sure there were notes taken, and people were read in on the meeting afterward.
Yeah, I know. He must have done it. He seems smart.
That was just totally a thing. So the thing here is that one of the things that I love about this whole setup is that he was once a man, and that he had become corrupted, and he had become the puppet of Saruman, basically.
Yeah.
And that
he probably got more evil looking himself along the way, like Saruman.
And there's not really a definitive time frame given for how long he's been under. It's just that he was under for a substantial enough part of time that his daughter he misses out on his daughter's whole life basically.
You talking about Theoden?
Right.
Yeah.
And one of the other things I love about that scene is that you can see the empathy and the desire that he has, that Wormtail has for. You're gonna have to help me with her name.
Aomer.
And that leads to the confrontation.
Eowyn, excuse me.
Eowyn.
Eowyn.
That leads to that confrontation later in the movie where she says, your words are poison.
See, I don't know. To me, I don't know if it's empathy.
Yeah,
from Grima.
it felt
feels
weirdly
covetous.
sexual.
It feels covetous to me.
It was covetous,
just
But she has compassion toward him.
Does she?
In that moment where they are confronted, there is a look for a brief moment about, he was once a man, and maybe this is a place where I need to find respite. And then she gathers her strength, and then she says, your words are poison. And you can see the hurt on his face, and it's just a weird dynamic that this character who's supposed to be evil and supposed to be, the King Whisperer, and just
I guess
being
I
a
read
part
that
of this
as
evil plan.
Yeah.
And then here he has this very human emotion of rejection, of being spurned by the person that he wants to be with the most.
I guess I think I'm kind of with Nathan, where I read it a bit differently, and it doesn't make me very sympathetic towards him. Like,
I thought he was trying to manipulate her.
I think he is upset.
Work.
I think he is, and I think he is upset because he got spurned by something he wants. But I don't think that wants come from a place of selflessness. I think he comes from a very selfish place. Like, he covets her, and that's kind of his end game to everything he's been doing.
That guy at all.
Which is funny because it turns right around on her when she falls for Aragon.
Yeah. Well, and to me, Grima represents something, a character that's all too real in human history, which is the evil advisor. Someone who everybody around the ruler knows, like, this guy's not a good guy. Why is he still, why does he have the ruler's ear? But for whatever reason, he does. And you see it all the time. You see it in businesses. You see it everywhere in real life.
Everyone knows someone who's got that one person that's around all the time. It's like, you really should stop hanging out with them.
Yeah, but then they don't, right?
Yeah.
So for however it started.
You had your Bryan Singers and your Britt Ratners.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Bryan Singer's going to make $40 million on Bohemian Rhapsody.
It's a hit piece. It's true, but it is a hit piece. It's put out right now specifically to try and hurt whatever small chances Bohemian Rhapsody has.
I hope all chances are taken to hurt that movie. Disgusting.
I mean, look, I don't think I disagree. Okay, so we meet Grima. Really good intro on him. Meet Theoden. And then we see Eomer and his riders get banished.
I need the directory.
This
right now,
leads them
with all the names.
Oh, okay. Are you starting a little bit?
I'm great with faces. Which doesn't really make for much if you're not good with names.
Carl Urban is Eomer.
Okay. All right.
Eowyn is the girl. I wish I should remember the actress name. I apologize. And then you have Theoden, who is the king.
Okay.
Played by the captain of the Titanic.
Yeah. What's his name? Bernard?
Something like that, yeah.
Anyway, so Carl Urban leaves, and that's what then leads him to finding the orcs. They just happen to scout them. They ride them down in the night, and we see Merry and Pippin in a terrifying situation. And to me, what has become one of the more iconic scenes in the movie is when the orcs are fighting over whether or not to eat Merry and Pippin. They all have these excellent, Cockney accents. Yeah, we want some meats. And they're trying to eat them. And then, like you said, Nathan, the Saruman Uruk-hai leader is disciplined enough where he's going to keep everybody in line.
He's a manager. He knows what needs to get done.
Exactly. He ends up lopping the head of one of the Mordor orcs, and
then they all become cannibals.
Looks like meat's back on the menu, boys. And this is one of a few times where I think we see Peter Jackson's roots showing through. Peter Jackson, when you look at Bad Taste and some of the other early movies he made, he loves super grotesque, super practical special effects. And so when they start eating that
movie wherever the guy comes in with a lawnmower and just plows through a house full of...
Is it?
Maybe so, where everyone in the village starts turning into flesh-eating monsters. And it reminds me a lot of that whenever everyone's like, let's eat this guy. Come on, everyone. And then there's flesh flying all over the place.
Yeah, the intestine.
Comical.
They're
comical,
exactly.
Up in the air.
Over the top. It's flying up in the air. The sound effects are all squishy sounding.
Yeah.
But then Frodo and Sam get almost eaten. They end up escaping thanks to the orcs. Oh, yeah, excuse me. Merry and Pippin almost get eaten. They end up escaping thanks to the Riders of Rohan, Eomer and company, running them down.
And the one orc follows them into the forest, and then they
Well, but,
Yeah.
but even before then, though, doesn't it end with us not sure if Merry and Pippin survive? You know, obviously we assume they do, but it makes it look like the horse is going to
Yes, that's right.
trample them.
Which,
do-
by the way,
they
that
do a
was a
couple
great
of different
shot.
false
Whenever I
finishes.
forget
Yeah.
who, if it was Mary or I think it might have been Pippin. Whenever
Pippin.
he goes under the horse,
Yes.
like that, they pull that off so well. It doesn't look like there's a green screen and then they just kind of cropped him in there.
more great little tricks of the trade to continue to make hobbits look small. They do such a good job in these movies. So from there, then I believe we're back to Aragorn and company, and they're still tracking. The blood moon is rising. Legolas says, "Oh, red sun rises." Not moon. It says red sun rises. Blood has been spilt on this day, which makes you think. I've seen a lot of red sunrises. So does that mean that? I guess people are
feels
dying
like
all
a
the time.
platitude.
I don't know, but whatever. So, sure enough,
I wanted someone to roll their eyes. I wanted one of the other characters in the scene to roll their eyes when I said
okay, like let's chill out, dude. So they're running to go track the orcs. They hear these riders coming. They hide, not knowing what it could be. And hey, look, it's Éomer and company. Aragorn calls out to them, and I love this. The riders immediately circle, all very disciplined looking, and then they circle around, spears pointing out them. And it's actually one of my favorite parts in the books. It's much shorter here, understandably so, but I still really enjoyed it. The conversation between Aragorn and Éomer and
that was
and
one of my
everybody.
favorite dynamics. Whenever he's trying to size them up because this guy might be a spy, and so trying to just make sure that he is.
There's not a lot of trust, right? That is one of the main things in the favor of all the evil forces versus the free peoples in Middle Earth at this time. It looks like trust and communication has completely broken down. It's kind of interesting, right? Because it's gone from a very unified world maybe in the past to where people have become much more nationalistic at this point, right?
Tribal.
Yeah,
Building
tribal.
walls.
Like, I mean, and I don't want to go there because I don't want to bring any modern politics, but there are echoes of like isolationism at this time. And so there are no trust. So when you see, even though these are humans, an elf and a dwarf, well, that's pretty odd. But, these are not necessarily inherently evil creatures like an orc. Éomer still has a just base level distrust for like, why the hell are y'all roaming around these lands? Like, you have to be up to no good. And Gimli ain't taking that crap. I love, this is also where you see Gimli and Legolas, their bond is obviously growing, right? Because like in the first movie, you would have never seen Legolas come to Gimli's defense when Gimli starts talking crap to Éomer, and Éomer says one of my favorite lines, that it would strike off your head, dwarf, if it stood but a little further from the ground. And then Legolas quick draws and is like, you would die before your blow lands. So you're already seeing that love between the dwarf and the elf start to crop up there.
That's the type of comedic relief between the two of them.
Well, yeah, and Gimli's face is hilarious.
Yeah.
John Rhys Davis, he's all of a sudden like, hey, whoa, guys, chill out. I was just talking shit. Like he's like, I thought we were just having fun. I was just, kind of being a dwarf, just a little surly. But in the end, they end up convincing Éomer that they are friends. I'm trying to remember exactly what line, how they did it. Do y'all remember? Maybe it's because they said they were tracking the Uruk-hai.
I think it's because Aragon basically iterates something that would hint at his lineage that kind of disarms him and says, okay, these guys are cool.
I thought they had mentioned something about them looking for their friends or them looking for the hobbits, and they don't really care about the orcs or anything like that. It was I thought that was what kind of disarmed them.
Yeah.
Either way, they end up being like, okay, we're kind of cool. We get it. They give him They give them 3 horses, and the riders go on their way. A nice final line from Éomer, though: "Do not trust to hope, for it is forsaken in these lands." Basically gives you an idea of just how low his head's at. And why not, right? He's been exiled by his own uncle, the king. I believe it's his uncle. Grima rules the land. Orcs are raiding. The king doesn't give a damn. Saruman's obviously evil. The king doesn't give a damn. So he's pretty hopeless at this point. And then our 3 adventurers go on. They find the orc pit, and that's when they too have a bit of a hopeless moment, as like Éomer says, they left none alive. So you basically just assume at that point that the hobbits might have ended up in that burn pile. But who's on the case?
Aragon.
Master Tracker Aragorn.
Yeah, I said his name wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Aragon, it's a dragon. Aragorn has the spirit of a dragon, so that makes sense.
That is true.
But Aragorn, though, so they do the scene where another thing I want to highlight about the burn pile, another Peter Jackson echo, the orc head on the spike.
Which has to be edited out for television.
Oh, really?
Yes, they have
What?
Whenever it's on TNT,
Orc?
they just have the
Orc head is like
no, they just have the
too
helmet.
violent?
Yes, they just have the helmet on the stick. They
What?
get it out the head because it's too violent.
Oh man, I mean the tongue is sticking out, the eyes
Yeah.
are rolled back. It's like it looks like over the top, almost comical, like you were saying with the
That's a shame
intestines.
that they do that.
Like you
And
were
I
saying
get
with
it.
the intestines flying around earlier. So I love that. That's kind of, to me, that's Peter Jackson just like, he's like a guy in a toy box, right? It's, every now and then he gets to kind of do what he would really like to, and that was fun. But Aragorn is looking around. He's like, oh wait, he's figuring out how they escaped, and then he sees that they went into Fangorn Forest.
What is the line that Gimli says there? Like, why would what? I forget what he says.
madness drove
Yeah.
them there? Which I'm like, well, Gimli, I mean, there was
a battle.
There's like
I mean-
100 Uruk-hai here, and they were obviously getting murdered. Like, I don't think it's so crazy that they ran into the forest. But dwarves, notorious, we know they don't like trees. They don't like forests and all that. Very untrusting of the woods.
Well,
See, I didn't know that.
and the funny thing is that with Jackson
for caves.
at this point in
Mines.
at this point in the commentary, this is when Jackson's like, we could only put so much of the forest in there, and there's so much more.
Yeah.
Like, it would make the great stuff for a TV series.
See, I'm not a huge fan of the forest stuff. Like, it's all good. There's
The
nothing in
stuff-
this movie that I don't like.
I love the end
There's
stuff. I love the end stuff.
whenever we
because
go there, I never really feel like, oh, okay, like, oh, I'm excited to be
Like,
with
you don't
these
feel
people.
like it's menacing, or you just don't care about what's going on
I
in the
don't care
forest?
as much. Like, I care more whenever they end up deciding that they're going to go and they're going to fight. But I never am really all that interested in
And
the.
see, I'm riveted by it because that is the epitome of Tolkien. Whenever I hear Treebeard talk, I hear Tolkien.
Yeah, I
And
love
hear
him.
with you there, too.
I love the character. I mean,
I hear him espousing Tolkien's beliefs, and there is an isolationist, self-protectionist point of view that is being espoused there,
Yeah.
which comes from having lived through a conflict that had absolutely no reason to be going on, and costing hundreds of thousands of millions of lives.
And we should be clear that Tolkien is adamant, though, that his stories are not allegory. Like, it's not supposed to be one-to-one, but it does say they are applicable.
Right.
And so you can apply
His
them to different
worldview
situations.
is very applicable to the way
Yes.
that Treebeard
I do,
views the
and I
world.
love all of that stuff. Like, I love us sitting here talking about it and hearing just the actual watching it, going back to that story. It's like, oh, I just like
mean,
the other stuff more.
It's a little slow from like a pure movie making standpoint.
But that's the ends.
yeah,
The
no, it
ends
is
are large
exactly.
and slow and deliberate in everything that they do.
I'm not saying it's not by design,
Yeah.
but it is also so. Merry and Pippin are in there. Treebeard saves them, even though Treebeard doesn't know what he's dealing with. He's kind of like, I don't know if y'all are orcs
yeah,
or not.
I love how removed he is. It's kind of like, these guys obviously aren't orcs, man. What are you talking
He's
about?
like, yeah, exactly. But he's like, he still doesn't know. But he's like, never seen them. So he's like, you're still, I don't know what to make of you.
Hobbits.
Yeah, they end up getting him. He's like, the White Wizard will know what to do with you.
I've got to plug something in over there, so I'm walking away for a second.
All right, go for it. I will say this about Treebeard. John Rhys Davies. Look, Treebeard's poetry, Treebeard's character, it's so well done. I think John Rhys Davies nails the voice. The sound design is excellent. I think you can I like the almost labored breathing type of feel, simply because that's what trees do for our earth, right? They breathe in carbon dioxide and they spit out oxygen. You can almost like hear that in Treebeard's voice. But my favorite part are when Treebeard's poetry, which is that in the original cut?
No, not all
I didn't
of
think
it.
so, right? Not
And-
the extended poetry
Right,
scenes.
and some of it was written by Fran, and some of it is from the book.
So what I love about it is not just the content of it, but whenever you read Tolkien's books, you always hear about like these songs like that evoke, like for instance, I was reading Fellowship to Alice, and then the Bear White scene, they talk about this song the Bear Whites are singing, and it evokes like grim, dark feelings. And when you hear about Treebeard's poetry, it evokes like ancient and forest feelings. And so as he's reading them in the movie, you're then just getting these unbelievable, beautiful alien shots of these vast forests, right? Like these forests that it's like, does that even exist on Earth? Because it's so unlike anything that we see in our everyday lives. And the poetry combined with Rhys Davies' voice, and by the way, that's Gimli, John Rhys Davies is, combined with the poetry, combined with his voice, combined with the shots, I think it just works together perfectly to do something that's very hard to do in movies, where in books, you can explain that context, like, oh, it evokes these feelings. Visually, the movie, to me, managed to evoke those same feelings. It's just really excellent visual storytelling.
Yes, and again, in the commentary, he says that like Treebeard was one of his biggest concerns when he took on the project, and he had commissioned Weta to work on it very early on, and a gentleman came in. This is 97, 98, very early pre-production. Came in with a drawing, because there aren't a lot of drawings in Lee's paintings or anywhere else of Treebeard. Just drew it to a T.
Wow.
And so the first shot, first try, perfect, exactly what he wanted. And so he just used that and gave it to Weta and said, "Here, let's start working on the digital for Treebeard." All this stuff, as I said, is fascinating, and I love the conversation. And part of it is informed by these kind of discussions that were happening in World War II, not just in World War I, but in World War II, about when do we get involved? At what line? At what line are we okay?
Like, at what point,
and that's
if
the
you're still
point
a bystander, are you complicit?
The part with the ends where it is more towards them having to make a decision, I am totally in at that point. And I love that. In the same...
and getting tied up with the roots. Getting tied up with the roots is a Tom Bombadil thing.
Yeah, that was a shout out to Old Man Willow, which
Right.
I love. Shout out to Tom and Old Man Willow. I just reread that chapter to Alice and Tom Bombadil. I absolutely understand why he's not in the movies, but for anybody who's a Lord of the Rings fan, if you haven't read the books, the Tom Bombadil chapter alone is worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the hobbits go in there. They leave with Treebeard. We hear about this white wizard. We see the back of the white wizard.
We see the glow.
Yes, the glow. And then eventually I think we actually jump straight to Frodo and Sam at the gates of they're at the Black Gate. They've made it. I love Frodo and Sam's direct line.
Just gone right in.
Yeah, I love their direct line commitment to the quest, right? It's like the most imposing looking a gate that is so large that they have to have cave trolls spin this giant mechanism to open it. They have a full army marching in there. And Sam and Frodo are so balls to the wall that they're about to just like sprint inside.
It's the point, I think, also where the audience is fully on board. Like, okay, Gollum needs to be here. You guys are not. You guys don't have what it takes to get there.
Like, you have no idea what you're doing. I think the most important thing to highlight from that is just simply that. And so this is where they're looking at the Black Gate. Sam slides down. He's stuck in the rocks. Frodo goes down. He covers himself with the cloak. And that's all I really want to highlight is I love the cloak special effect.
Yeah, and they get it. It works perfectly well. You expect them to cut to another shot so that they can, mask everything together, but it's like it's there and then
so it looks like a rock, and then they pull it back and it just goes. Now, I was wondering when they did that shot, and I don't remember from any behind the scenes stuff, was that a physical shell of a rock that they'd kind of attached a blanket underneath to make it look like that, or was it CGI? Okay, so it was CGI, and then they just
it works really well.
It does work very well. For the second time, Galadriel's gifts saving the hobbits on this journey to Mordor. We're gonna keep count of that.
And
so
I
they
always
gave the cloak and the rope.
And I always viewed that more as like Gollum having his own reasons for wanting to take them on his path.
That is a good point. I don't think Gollum's reasons are fully altruistic. But then again, Gollum's ultimate thing is he doesn't want Sauron to get back the ring because he wants the ring,
and don't come back.
But he also knows that, like, okay,
leave and don't come back.
But that's the thing, right? He also knows that if they go into the Black Gate like that, they're gonna get caught. Sauron will end up with the ring, and he'll never have another chance at it. So he convinces them to go a different way. When do we get to? Is the Gollum scene then, or do we go back to the Aragorn trio, right? And they meet the White Wizard. They go into Fangorn. It's very scary. And they meet the White Wizard. Their backs are turned. They kind of sense him. When y'all first saw the movie, did y'all know who the White Wizard was?
It sounded like Saruman to me.
Yes.
Do they use Christopher Lee's voice in that?
They do.
They use Christopher Lee's voice, and they use Christopher Lee's eyes and his hands.
Okay.
It feels, even when watching it this time, every time I always try and take note of that. It's like, is this real? It is totally his voice. And I feel like they're trying to trick you.
And they did.
Right?
They got me the first time. What I love is we immediately see how powerful Gandalf the White is.
Oh, he's so shiny.
Well, not only that, but with how he handles, his true shiny scene is coming up soon.
Yeah.
But with how he handles Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas, remember, these are the same three warriors that had 100 Uruk-hai on the run, and yet Gandalf smacks away Gimli's throwing axe and Legolas's arrow and burns the sword out of Aragorn. Like, he handles them like they were children.
Yeah.
Like they were nothing. They couldn't have even touched him. And then we learn. And even Gandalf doesn't really kind of know that, oh, wait, I'm I'm
love-
Gandalf. That's
I
what they
love-
once
That makes
called
me so sad that he can't remember, or that you can tell that he's not the same person. He
Well,
is, but he's not.
such a man. He's been on. He's such a man of, or he's not a man, but he's such a being of purpose and he's been at it for so long that I think some of his identity gets lost in that transition.
Well, and he's basically an
So,
extended cameo.
a
in
chunk
this
of it is lost. It feels like a different character. I mean,
It
it
is
is a different character.
It is.
Jinx can't talk the rest of the time.
And I, he's basically an extended cameo in this movie,
Yeah.
because he basically runs Wormtail off, and then he leaves and says, "Hey, I'll be back on the sunrise of the 5th day."
so let's talk.
And
Let's talk about the Wormtail scene then.
But my thing with Gandalf the White is that my favorite thing about it is the line that he utters at the beginning when he sees them, which is, "I am Saruman as he was supposed to be."
Mm-hmm.
I am.
Good point.
I
It also
am,
justifies the use of Christopher Lee's
Right.
voice and hands and
right.
everything.
I am the white wizard that he was supposed to be.
And so then Gandalf hits the most beautiful whistle in cinematic history.
Real horse trained to hit that exact mark in front of Gandalf, in front of
Wow.
Ian McKellen.
Yeah. Beautiful horse, too. Shadowfax, all white.
I love that name.
It's a great name.
It's it makes me laugh a little bit. Shadowfax. It's just
Bitch.
it does. I mean, whenever I get a little
That's a good fantasy name for a horse.
Shadowfax.
Shadowfax is it's a better name.
It
than-
sounds like if you want to get a copy of all of the faxes that have been sent from a certain
no,
machine.
that is not
Not
true.
true.
That is not true. I refuse to support it. It's spelled like
well,
that.
no.
though.
If you want to install Shadowfax, I have that.
Oh
We
no!
can-
Now you're ruining the name for me. Anyway, Gandalf looks fabulous, white on white. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
just like as clean as could be. Riding Shadowfax. They ride up to Edoras, and it's got a bad vibe
And
in the
in
city
this-
when they go in there.
right. And in this, I think it's either in this time period or after they dispel Wormtongue. Gandalf and Aragorn have a very deep conversation that kind of pushes Aragorn toward where he needs to be, which is on
That's
his
a bit
back.
later.
Yeah.
So that's after. So they show up at the throne room. They give up all their weapons. It's hilarious watching Gimli and all. They have
Which
so many
also
weapons.
purporting the Second Amendment a little bit. Thank you, Peter Jackson.
Yep,
Big Second
way-
Amendment supporter. They
way
should
to
have kept
go.
their weapons.
Well, but you would not separate an
Huh,
old man from
from
his
his
walking
walking
That's
stick,
great. I
would
love
you?
whenever Worm. That's his name, Wormtongue, right?
Yes.
Whenever he said, "You didn't take his
Didn't
staff."
take his staff because he immediately knows they're screwed.
But if you notice,
I think Gimli didn't take his staff on
But-
purpose
but
though,
if you-
because he kind of
Yeah,
looks
hey,
and he
look-
gives him like he's good.
But if
You're
you
good, bro.
notice,
You're good.
he doesn't walk with it front out when he walks into the throne room. He has it down, tilted down by his side with the point turning down. So you can't really see what it is.
Yeah.
Because if he'd have walked in straight away with the staff fully visible, he would have said, "Hey, take that away from him."
Yeah. Also, it kind of just shows how much bullshit the old man in the staff line
Right.
is because he's not even using it
Right.
as a walking stick. So then you have the three go beat up all the bad guys while Gandalf's walking up on Theoden, and you think, okay, Gandalf's just going to cast Saruman out of there, and it doesn't work. Saruman starts laughing, and this is where Gandalf has his glow moment.
Yeah.
He throws back the gray cloak, and it's like literally, it's just like shining, and I just kind of love it because everybody in the room's like, and like Theoden and Saruman and everybody can't handle it, and indeed, Gandalf ends up casting Saruman out, looking fabulous, looking excellent while doing so. How did you all feel about the special effects between just in that whole scene? To me, it was very effective where you didn't need to do anything over the top. It's just simple camera cuts.
Oh yeah, no, and I thought whenever watching it, because I think I got to that point and realized I'm watching the theatrical version. I need to rewatch this whole thing again. But it does. I really like how it's just in that scene. There's probably just a massive light shining on the actors, and they're like, all right, action. They're just
Yeah, no, exactly right. And like when he casts Saruman out, there's no, I mean, the anti-aging effect we'll get to, but it's really just a camera cut to then Saruman flying backwards, and it really gets the message across that, okay, this guy was fully possessed. Now he's not anymore.
Just awesome filmmaking, knowing that it's probably going to feel lame when filming it, but it's going to edit
right,
together.
exactly. Like when you're shooting that, it would feel like, what's this going to look like? But it works perfectly. Now, what is an actual special effect? The Theoden kind of de-aging process,
Which works
is seamless.
Yeah.
And it's makeup, and it's shot 4 different times.
Oh, really? So it's kind of like a
Huh.
so it's different stages of makeup with digital in between.
No, it's straight. Like he has the old makeup, shoot, then next day come
Yeah.
back, middle-aged makeup,
Yes.
shoot, and then normal makeup.
And then they
work,
do.
shoot.
They just blend it.
But I'm
Right.
saying they have to blend it digitally
Yes.
at least. But it works. That's why it holds up so well. Then that it's not purely digital.
Okay, so he's been going through this transition for a long time,
Yes.
right? Okay. Because whenever I see it, I think someone must have, like, he looks way different. So
Yeah.
it makes sense if it's been years. It's not like,
no, he looks night and day different. Yeah, like if he had gone through that physical transformation in under a year, nobody would have been like, you know what, this is okay. But I think because it happened over such a long time, like, oh, he's just getting old, and then you see, oh wait, he really should. One thing I love too, and this
you're
speaks
40,
to just,
right?
this speaks to like ancient old fantasy, is how Gandalf's like, maybe your old hands would remember their strength better if he gripped your sword. And it's
He's
just
manipulating him into going after Wormtail.
Yeah, but
Wormtongue.
I also just I just love the there's something in ancient high fantasy about the power of a sword, and not just any sword, but like specifically your sword or a sword of great make that has runes of power inscribed on it. And I love Theoden's sword visually. The horse kissing pommel type of deal I think is beautiful. And sure enough, Theoden grabs that sword and he seems to come alive, and he's going after Grima. And this is the question
I
that
would
ask
have
y'all.
killed him.
So that's what I've wrestled with. Should Aragorn have let Theoden kill Grima?
Yeah, I don't get whenever Aragorn goes to stop him. I wish you would have let him go. I mean, I get why he didn't.
He says enough blood has been spilled on his account.
Yeah.
It's a high road situation, and it's interesting. So I just listened to this book, Finding Eichmann, I believe it was called.
Been manipulating him for years.
It's about It's about Israel hunting down one of the main Nazi war criminals, this guy Adolf Eichmann, and they find him in Brazil. And at
And
first
they
they're
made
like,
a movie about this.
yeah, that's what I heard. Right, that's what led me to the book. So they're like, well, should we just
Operation?
Yes, Operation Eichmann, I think is what they called the
Or
movie.
final?
Operation Finale.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what it was.
was really bad,
either
right?
way,
It's
I think
Kingsley's
it had
okay.
like a 60 on Rotten Tomatoes or something.
Kingsley and Isaac are okay.
Okay.
But either way, so they hunt him down, and they're talking about like, okay, should we just like kill him? Like, I mean, that's what he deserves, right? But they're like, no, we need to capture him, bring him back, and give him a fair trial on Israeli soil to show that we are better than our enemies. And the thing is, if Theoden just kills Grima there, although it's just, and although that is deserved, it does kind of validate some of those lower civilizational tactics, right? Those killing without a trial, those killing those who you're kind of just
Maybe
above power. Like it makes you kind of the same as your enemies in a way if you're just killing without discretion.
I feel probably not that he should have killed him. I think I might not like that.
I've let him go.
that they just let him go, primarily because he's a king of a kingdom that is in serious decline, it seems. The fact that he is, back again, I feel like there needs to be some type of dominance to restore the morale around there.
Well,
and the fact that he just lets him go, I feel, is kind of weak whenever
Needs
you
to
should show
reassert the
strength.
throne.
And
I feel like you should have given him a trial.
And look, to me,
Captured
you
him.
could argue that maybe that Aragorn doesn't really know the better parts of leadership at that point. He's just speaking more of a kind of merciful human being than anything else. Because, look, maybe the better part of leadership was to capture Grima or to kill him. Because Grima ends up getting a lot of people from Rohan killed. Like, he tells the
Helm's
weakness. He tells what they're going to do at Helm's Deep. He tells Saruman exactly where to attack and how to attack Helm's Deep.
Yeah,
So
they've got that little sewer thing that you can go through.
that Grima knows about. So no, I mean, I'm
I
not
just
saying
felt a little bit weird that he then turned around and left, and Aragorn wasn't like we should, but still get him. Like, hold on to the guy.
Exactly. So that's my deal. I'm not saying that that's the right answer, because for all the high-minded philosophy of you want to prove that you are better than your enemies and you don't want to stoop to their level, like, there's a very easy case to make that no, they should have killed him, but they don't, and he gets away, and
by running away.
He gets away by running away, and then we get to the funeral scene. Theoden tragically learns that his son has died. To me, it's one of the most effective emotional. Yeah, it's one of the most effective emotional moments of the entire trilogy. Is when he says no son should have to bury his father and starts crying
Because he had just been playing with his own son on that hillside before they shot that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And
oh, wow.
And
that's
then
really touching.
And the flowers are all, of course, added in digitally.
The flowers are I don't know. I felt like
Beautiful,
whenever
pure and
that came in, it decorated the frame really beautifully.
What did y'all think about Eowyn's funeral song?
All of the empowerment,
the song didn't stick out to me in particular.
Oh, really?
the moving and the empowerment of the shot, the idea of the men transitioning the body to the women and allowing the women to be the ones to lay him to rest. It gives the empowerment and this mystical love, this mystical unconditional love and support and affection and understanding that Tolkien imbues all of his women with throughout his work. And I just thought the song is beautiful. It resonates really well. And I think that imagery of men handing them off, the men handing him off to the women for the women to take care of and tend to at that last hour or that last moment was very moving.
I just think that the whole song evokes some feelings that are exactly what you're looking for. Like it evokes a cultural, almost Nordic, very almost like, I don't know if masculine's the right word, but a hard society, right? Like it's kind of a harsh song.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily what you would call a beautiful song, but I think it evokes kind of the feeling of Rohan, these hardened men who have been there for a while. But it's also very haunting sounding and very heartbreaking.
And it comes from a place of pain.
Yeah, and she absolutely nails it. She does an incredible job with it. And so now we get to the funeral scene's done, and now it's time to go forward. And this is where I think we start to move forward a bit. And Gandalf is talking to Theoden, and they're kind of game planning about what they need to do. And this is where you have the Aragorn and Gandalf scene where they kind of reset and kind of catch up on, okay, what's going on right now? Where do we sit? We're in trouble. But our great ace in the hole is that Frodo and Sam are heading towards Mount Doom, and the last thing that the enemy thinks they're going to do is destroy the ring.
I liked that they gave that perspective because I did not have that. For some reason, I just had a view that, they know that the hobbits are out there with the ring. So I did like that. That put everything into scale for me.
Yes. And the enemy obviously does know that a hobbit has the ring, because that's why Merry and Pippin were supposed to be brought back to Saruman unspoiled and unkilled.
But it's nice to know that the enemy, because I had assumed the enemy was aware of what was going on. Yeah. So it put a lot more weight. I was kind of surprised at the weight that it put on Frodo and.
Well, it lets you know that. He straight up says Frodo is the hope to everything.
Right.
Like the entire world hinges on the success of Frodo's mission.
No, he's the bitch right now.
And the best to me, some just very subtle acting by Ian McKellen, was when he learns that Sam went with him.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, and you can tell he's like so happy. He's just so touched.
Yeah.
That Sam would put himself in that situation. He I think he feels simultaneously, I think he feels pity, kind of, he feels badly for them because he knows they're probably going to die, but I think he also continues, despite the fact that he's been alive forever, he continues to be impressed with the depth of courage that hobbits can display when kind of pushed to it. And it's all involved in just this little facial tick from Ian McKellen. It's genius.
Doesn't it? And it feels really strange to think that from Gandalf's perspective at that point, Frodo was going alone, and at the beginning, at the end of Fellowship of the Ring, it's a surprise that Sam's going to go with him. I can't imagine Frodo doing this on his own, even getting to the point where he meets Gollum on his own.
No, he would have been screwed. He needed the power of friendship and support.
And now they have to make the decision to go to Helm's Deep, which in the books is forced upon them by the wolf attack on Rowan to kind of just
see. I haven't read Two Towers in years. I need to reread Two Towers.
It really just invokes to him that in his new state that we are vulnerable. We need to move to
so it's not like in the movies they want him to ride out and meet him, and they paint Theoden's decision as arguably one of weakness, although I think it was a pretty solid decision.
Right. It's a political decision.
Yeah.
It's a tactical military decision at that point to move to Helm's Deep. And in the books, it's perpetuated by the wolf attack, which we still get in the movie.
Yeah.
But we get it in a different place.
So they go to Helm's Deep, and this is what I love, because Gandalf leaves him at this time. He's going to go hunt down Éomer, and he is one of my favorite lines of the entire trilogy, and it just really speaks to Gandalf's character. He talks about how he's always been known as the Grey Pilgrim. He's wandered all over Middle-earth, and then he has this line where he says, 300 lives of men I've walked this earth, and now I have no time. Imagine that feeling. You've been alive for thousands of years. You've been unceasing in your quest to try to defeat evil. And despite the fact that you've been allowed forever, now you have like a couple of days. Like that would be such a mind fuck.
time.
Like that's crazy.
Too much to do and not enough time to do it in.
Exactly. Even though he's had unlimited time, right? He's immortal. Like he's lived forever. He's a Maiar maybe. So I love that. Unfortunately, y'all, I do think this is where the movie starts to drag in the middle a little bit.
Yeah, it's where I start to. I'm already. I mean, it's been a few weeks since I've seen the movie. This is where I really get spotty in terms of
Exactly.
It takes too much out of Helm's Deep. You take too much time in Helm's Deep, getting there, setting up the bomb, putting the establishing shot of the sewer. You know, Aragon.
I do really like that because I love anything that has to do with a heist and the little explaining of how we're gonna get in there.
Yeah.
I really love that part. Whenever I love that type of stuff.
I don't mind any of that. To me, it's more of the, and I get, it's just kind of how the story lines up. Like all the different threads we're following just all kind of have lulls. And I just mean from a pure action. Like it's a lot of setup, which ends up paying off relatively well.
Well, the setup is really, really great, and it's very memorable. And I think there's a certain point where you know where everything is going to go.
Right.
Nothing's going to be it's predictable at this point, and it's a little frustrating that it takes another 30 minutes to get the action going.
But that's what Jackson says in the commentary. Every great war movie amps up the tension.
You need the calm. Yeah. You need the calm before the storm.
It builds up to it. And so
like what? Saving Private Ryan has a lot of that. Right. And I think the thing is just you do need that in terms of whether or not it's still compelling. I think it kind of just drops the ball
in a compelling way. And again, that they admit that goes back to the fact that they were 4 to 6 weeks behind.
Well, look, we have 3 threads that we're following, and Sam and Frodo hit a bit of a
lull.
They hit a lull where they get kidnapped and by Faramir Company, and there's a lot of great stuff in there. There really is.
The Gollum conversation between Smeagol and Gollum,
which we haven't talked about. Let's go ahead and talk about that now.
And the fact that like Gollum is like, leave and never come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love how he is. I mean, you do have 2 sides in there, but he's insane.
Yeah.
He's pretty much a crazy person.
True dual personality.
He's starting to trust Frodo.
Yeah.
And he's starting to believe that he can be loved unconditionally, even in this monstrous state. And he chases away Gollum for a period of time until they get captured, until he gets abused again, and until he believes that Frodo turns on him, in which case Gollum comes back with a vengeance.
One of the most heartbreaking scenes to me in all the movies is, so we see the scene with the dialogue with himself, which Andy Serkis nails. The camera cuts are great. I like
also,
how
in terms of the editing, because you go from a place where he's talking to himself, just like this, like you actually see him switching in one shot,
switching from
yeah, and then it moves into like, okay, we're really gonna have one person have a conversation with himself and cut it like it's 2 people there. It does that wonderfully.
It really emphasizes, and then they don't do the final cutaway after the final line. Yeah, so he's just gone. Like, oh, he's gone. Like, this is just Smeagol now. And so that's all very effective. And then it looks like they
do the rabbit thing.
They trust each other. Yeah. Potatoes, boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew. Great line.
And it's nice. It's really nice whenever it's just Smeagol. He seems like an ugly dog who you want to
lovable.
You're never gonna dislike any dog, even if it's really ugly.
Yeah, but he's like so mangy looking. You still maybe couldn't fully trust him, but but he seems sweet.
He still looks scary whenever he's beating that fish in there. I don't want to go near him.
Okay, so then they get kidnapped by Faramir, and they say they don't. Frodo and Sam are trying to be super careful. We learn about Boromir dying, which we'll get more to in a second. But I do want to talk about when Gollum then feels betrayed, or Smeagol, because Faramir finds him and Frodo kind of sets Smeagol up. He's like, look, you have to trust me. Like, come here, I'm here. And you can see almost like an animal that's a bit hesitant. Smeagol's looking at him like, are you sure? I don't know. And then sure enough, he ends up getting choked and kind of beaten. And like Brian said, it really does allow the Gollum character to come back with a vengeance, because he gets to come back and be like, I told you so, Smeagol. You are unworthy of love. You cannot trust anybody. Hobbits lie. Anybody that you trust will eventually break your heart in the end. And it is the final breaking of Smeagol. Like, it is what guarantees that there is no hope of redemption for this character. And that's a little hard. Like, the pain that he has in his eyes and his actions and how he looks, and when he's curled up in the corner and he's crying and he's switching back and forth between 2 personalities, it's horrifying.
Right. And the torture that Faramir does to Smeagol was actually way worse in the
Yeah.
original cuts and the original edits, and even in the extended cut, is much more mild than what they had originally planned. But that's scary to think about, because you do feel so deeply for Smeagol as he's sitting there being accosted by these taller, stronger men for no other reason than just
Existing.
existing.
Yeah, why is the forbidden pool so forbidden? Like,
Yeah.
what's wrong? Why are you supposed to die if you go swimming in that pool? It looked
I
like a
don't
nice
know.
little waterfall setup, but sure, fantasy, right? Sometimes things are forbidden. Okay, before we move on from the Faramir story, I do want to talk about what is my favorite deleted scene in all the trilogy.
What is your favorite deleted scene?
Boromir and Faramir and the flashback to Osgiliath.
I'm glad that you mentioned this. It is the only shot in the entire trilogy with all three of them together.
Denethor, Faramir, and Boromir, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is the only shot in the entire trilogy with all three of them. And it is when he is on his way to meet the Fellowship.
Yes. No, yeah. It's literally
it is,
the last time that Faramir and Boromir see each other alive.
And it starts to let you in on the secrets of Minas Tirith. Because up until this point, we've only seen Minas Tirith in Fellowship as Gandalf is going there to get the scrolls and do some investigating. It starts letting you in on the fact the king is an uneasy king.
And this is whenever he gives him the assignment to go and...
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that was not in the original
was not
cut.
in the original
that entire scene where
That is
you
really
see-
good.
You see Sean Bean rallying the army after
Yeah.
they've taken back Osgiliath, and he's like, "Remember, brother, today is a day of celebration." And
I do
everything.
love the family dynamic. I love how that every now, I mean, yeah, it's an epic movie, but whenever it has these smaller family dynamic things that everyone can relate to, it's like, oh yeah, you like him more. I know, I get it.
And that's the problem,
And
is
that
that
sets
like
up
the
Fellowship.
movie, The Two Towers loses so much by not having that in the original cut.
Right.
Because it establishes Denethor, like you said, uneasy ruler, very insecure, the family dynamics. It makes Boromir infinitely more sympathetic.
Yeah.
Like, he is the hero of Gondor. His father, his king, who he wants to do right by. Denethor
He's George W. Bush.
he's a better ruler than even the movies give him credit for. But like Boromir, when he's telling him, like, look, you are the great hope for Gondor. You have to go get this weapon and bring it back here.
Yeah.
It is literally our only hope.
It's like a nuclear weapon.
Yeah,
It's-
you now know that Boromir is not just a simple man who fell into temptation in the first movie. These are the type of external pressures that he has placed on him. It also fleshes out Faramir and his eventual decision making and how impactful it is to him to let the ring go
Which in
when
the
his
books,
brother couldn't, when his dad wants him
Right.
to.
Which in the books is not a hard decision for him. He lets them go.
Yeah.
He does not tarry on that decision. It
Yeah.
is not a weighted decision for him. They had to add to that for the movies to draw out a more dramatic tension for the character. But in the books, he's just not tempted by the ring at all, and they were afraid that would make the ring lose power.
Yeah, no. I think
lose
it's well
importance.
handled in the
Yeah.
movies. I think it's very well handled. And with the family setup that they have, you would feel a ton of pressure. Like Denethor is telling Boromir, like, this is the great hope for Gondor, and we trust you, and everybody's relying on you. You have to bring the ring back. So him going after Frodo now at the end of the first movie makes so much more sense. It makes him more sympathetic. Denethor established Faramir and his problems. My favorite scene. So we feel really bad for Smeagol. Next, I think we should jump to, so Frodo and Sam are doing that. Merry and Pippin are just with the Ents. Anything to say there?
They're waiting on the
They're hanging
council. They're gathering the council together.
Even Merry and Pippin are a little annoyed with how slow things
Yeah,
are
I mean,
moving.
yeah,
They're
like when
going
it's
all night.
nighttime and you're like, okay, if y'all decide to, like, we just finished saying hello. It's like, well, Jesus, guys. I mean, we all have meetings in the workplace, right? Everybody hates meetings. Like, what are we doing here? But trees are slow. They're ancient.
He explains that.
Ents.
Yes.
There is a very
Ents.
distinct difference between Ents and trees.
I am no tree. I am an Ent. And then the other group is traveling to Helm's Deep. And even though I like the wolf scene, I think the action's pretty cool. It's pretty fun.
How did you feel about the false finish again with another lead character in Aragon being thrown off the side of the cliff?
I don't think
I'm never a
any
huge
of
fan
it,
of that type of
See,
thing.
to me, this is where I don't mind the false finish aspect. And you know, they needed to get him in almost a hallucinatory state so
Right.
they could do these Arwen scenes and they could have him they want to establish a bit of a love through line. I just don't feel a lot of the Aragorn Arwen emotion. Do y'all like
No.
like
Well,
it's not quite
No.
Attack of the Clones bad, but there's not a lot of warmth there. It
I don't
feels a little
feel
cold.
anything for either
I
of them.
feel-
Yeah, it feels a little cold.
part of the problem for me is that the age difference is so pronounced at the time on screen.
Oh, really? See, I don't think that
you can tell
bugged me.
that he is a much older man.
Well, he's 87, Brian. Jeez.
Jeez, I know. I know, but like...
Actually, she's like thousands of years at that
old.
point. So.
But like, just in terms of, like, Liv Tyler was in her 20s at that point. Viggo Mortensen was already in his 40s.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's not because Attack of the Clones. That's just people not acting well with bad dialogue. Like there's a bigger level there.
You mean you don't think that she liked you watching her?
Yeah. Like
it's a conversation for another day.
It's not badly played. I just look at Anakin and Padme, and the two of them look attractive. They're the same age. Like I can see them falling in love. When I look at the two of them with good dialogue in this movie, and everything is staged very well, I look at the two of them and like I don't
know if it's even a natural chemistry between them. I just don't think that the
she gives off an ethereal.
Ethereal.
It's
a weird word.
Yeah, she gives off an ethereal presentation. She feels not quite as much as Blanchett, but she feels like.
And maybe that's why we can't relate.
Don't touch her.
Yeah,
please.
Right. And maybe that's why we can't relate. But and you know what? To filmmakers' credit, I think that's what they're going for. It just makes me not be able to relate to the love story. Like Theoden crying over his dead son. Smeagol crying about his trust being broken. Those touch me emotionally. This doesn't do a lot.
Aragorn he's such a driven character. Even whenever his purpose changes, he's so driven that the idea of him being in love feels a little bit odd whenever it's played.
That's a good point as well. And I think that he's just I wonder what it's like when Arwen and Aragorn finally had to just sit down and like live a couple hundred years together, like in peace, like when they weren't just constantly fighting these like epic battles.
80,
I don't like onions in the eggs.
86 years old, and they typically live to be 150.
Oh, I thought Numenorians lived to be around 300.
I thought it was like 150.
I'm not sure.
I'm not up to date on my encyclopedic knowledge.
Me neither.
But I mean,
me neither.
Those establishing shots are from, like I said earlier, from the epilogue, from the appendices.
Now, one thing though that these scenes do is it does show that even though Eowyn's very thirsty for my man's, he is taken, not going anywhere. She's kind of shocked when she hears that he's 87,
and he never, he never really entertains the notion.
I
mean,
even when she tells him "I love you," he kind of gives her a look like, it's kind of weird.
But Rowan, like that community, you could easily see how being around men of that ilk for all of your life. And then Strider comes in, and like Strider is the epitome of all of that.
Yes.
And like
martial, honorable, chivalric,
and he's not related to you at all.
Yeah. Exactly. He's not your cousin or your brother.
So like, yeah, I can totally see how that could be a thing.
I get it, man. She's young. She's a normal aged human being. Like it's easy to fall for Aragorn. I absolutely see why. So you have the wolf attack. The only thing I want to highlight here from a pure filmmaking standpoint is couple things. So when Aragorn falls off, the scene where he's floating down the river? He actually did
almost drowned.
And he almost drowned. He was underwater for almost a minute. He got
Jackson
stuck.
says he did not know, but Fran did because she was the one directing the scene.
Yeah, he got stuck in like an eddy or something underwater, and they started freaking out because he wasn't coming up. They had divers and everything there, but he wasn't coming up. And then finally his body popped out again. And he's still acting. And Viggo was still like limp, like just floating along when he came out the water.
Whoa.
Yeah, so he almost died there. And then the other thing, he spent so long training with that horse, Brigo, to do the scene where he lays on the ground and picks him up. Because if he falls, look at how the horse falls over. If he falls on Viggo, he could kill him. Like he could break his ribs. He could kill him legitimately. Viggo Mortensen used to spend the night in the stables with Brigo, offset. He would spend the night to form this relationship,
and ultimately
to eventually be able to. Yeah, and then he eventually bought him. Yeah.
Wow.
But to be able to do this trick, so like Viggo Mortensen. You're the man. There's a reason why you were so successful.
Let's hope he gets Best Actor for
as Aragorn.
Not even a little.
You don't like Green Book?
No, that's not a.
It's the first time he's been nominated without showing his balls.
Yeah, this is true.
Hey, was he? Oh, he wasn't nominated for Lord of the Rings, was he?
But I mean,
no, you see his balls in Lord of the Rings.
But that's my issue is that like that scene, the wolf attack scene, is not pre storyboarded out. It's not choreographed.
Yeah, no, they were just like swinging against air.
They were swinging. It's very much the starting of the worrying signs. Now he pulls it off.
You can do anything, and then that's the problem.
He pulls it off, he goes back in and digitally tinkers with it, and he makes it work.
It's the first step
But-
that then leads to them filming the escape scene from Desolation of Smaug and the Hobbit
Right.
in just a giant green room
Right.
with not a single piece of scenery, and then just being like,
no
oh, and then they can do
styrofoam.
this, and then they can do this.
It is strange that in the early 2000s they're revolutionizing CGI with this motion capture, and then
And then they
a
make
little
all
over
the
a
mistakes
decade
that you're
later,
not supposed to
they
make.
put Benedict Cumberbatch in some of the cronkiest looking CGI stuff that you've seen.
I know,
Again,
and Cumberbatch
rush job.
killed the performance, too. So
So-
frustrating.
Let's get to Helm's Deep.
Okay, yeah, okay. So I'm trying to think about if there's anything we need to highlight in the interim. Like we said, I think it drags a little bit here. Aragorn's whole battle. One
You have
story
to,
element
you have to
that
mitigate the difference between Helm's Deep and Minas Tirith. You have to you have that map scene we talked about earlier. You draw
With
the
the
distinct
pointing.
differences.
you have Galadriel basically doing another prologue
Right.
too. She does a resetting of the story. Who's she talking to? Gandalf
yes.
telepathically,
Yeah.
and just talking about kind of reestablish the gates, everything that's going on. And then Aragorn shows back up. Everybody's happy. And Helm's Deep is about to go. Helm's Deep's about to go down. One story thing that Aragorn leaving makes sense is he gets to scout the army.
Yeah,
So he gets
to
to tell them
that
like, oh, hey, there's 10,000 orcs here coming. We're in deep
We're
shit.
probably not going to win.
Yeah, we're in
300
trouble.
men versus 10,000
Don
orcs.
Cotomini? And I will die as one of them.
No, I like
that, and that scene I love.
Me too.
The idea that the Fellowship, as it still stands, those three, are bickering against one another because, like, he's an elf. Legolas is an elf.
He's like, I don't have a man in this fight.
Well, he's looking around this and he's going, "There's no way they can win. Like, what are we doing here? We're just spinning these wheels, and all these people are going to die. Like, this is not cool." And he's like, "That's not the point. The point is to stand and fight and defend.
Yes.
And if we die, we die, but we die defending what we love and what we know."
So what's so interesting to me about that is literally a lesson that Theoden teaches him about 5 minutes before. When Theoden's being like, crops can be resown, this can be redone. And Aragorn's like, what are you talking about, dude? We're all going to die. Like, there's no, like, what? And Theoden takes him aside. He's like, bitch. He's like, hey, shut the fuck up. Everybody's scared right now, obviously. It's like he teaches, because Aragorn, although he is a king, he doesn't know how to lead necessarily, or he does in small batches. He maybe doesn't know about the broader strokes of ruling a kingdom. And so Theoden having to take him aside and be like, hey, man, these people are freaking out. Nobody needs that crap right now. Like, you need to give them false hope, even if it is false hope. Like, I really thought that was effective for Aragorn to learn that lesson. Then he does kind of turn around and almost teach Legolas a bit of the same.
And then Legolas comes back and asks for forgiveness, and there's nothing to forgive.
Yeah, and this is where Gimli's comedic relief starts to shine through in some dark moments where he has the chainmail. We have time to get this adjusted. And he drops it down. And then the elves show up, which is not in the books.
Not in the books at
Major
all.
change.
Now-
Haldir.
Now, they are out on the front lines battling to protect their kingdom.
Oh, I did not realize.
And
Oh,
they are-
yeah,
so-
I knew they were back
they
home.
are,
Yeah.
So they are actively involved in the fight against...
Yeah, and like dwarves are fighting all over the world as
Right.
well.
So, like, no, there weren't 500... there weren't 500 elves that showed up at Helm's Deep to help them fight. But they were out and about fighting, so it wasn't like they were, isolationist or they weren't, neutral.
I don't know what it is as
It's
a
also-
kid.
It's also a callback to the idea of Elrond sending his sons to Aragon, which is something that happens in the books, but they didn't want to have to go out and cast 2 more people and introduce 2 more characters.
Yeah.
And so this was a way to, because you'd already seen this elf before, you'd seen him in,
You saw him a
in
bit in
Fellowship.
Fellowship. More in
so-
the extended edition.
right, and so you have that tie that they are together.
Yeah.
And so it's an homage to that he is sending his sons to fight with Aragon.
I don't know what it was, man. When I was young and I saw the elves show up, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I thought their armor looked awesome. Very evocative of
Gives
these
you
elven
hope.
warriors. It gives you hope. I've always felt that was one of the most effective changes that the movies made. I think it was positive because when you see the eventual odds that they're under, it makes it more palatable that they survive because they got these last second reinforcements from not just any reinforcements, like the 300. It's not even like it's something like 300 from the Spartan story of 300 in the gates of Thermopylae. Like, those are 300 elite soldiers. Rohan's bringing to bear, like, the
farmers.
dregs. Yes, these are...
Well, just everyone needs to grab a sword.
Yes, these are boys and farmers and old men. And so to get this elite force of
and they're
elves,
kind
I
of
think,
cornered.
helps a lot.
Like, this isn't...
Yeah.
They even talk about how they're going to get out. Like, the way that they get out is
there's
a
no
trickle.
way out. There's a... like, well, you could go... I don't even think... Can you get out of the caves? No, I think, like, they're, like, stuck.
Well, which the other part of it, to me, was the scenes of the sons and the fathers being
Taken away from the families. Very effective.
Which, again, is evocative of, Vietnam, World
draft.
War I, World War II.
Yeah.
I mean, that sense of, they may leave and they may never come home. And if they do come home, they may never come back the same way.
Yeah. As Faramir says earlier in the movie, war will make corpses of us all.
Mm-hmm.
And then so you have the elves show up. There's like, okay, a little hope now. We're maybe going to be okay. And then you see the torches and the lightning, and you see just like the
rain,
mass of orcs when the lightning goes, and you're kind of like, holy shit.
But I love the
They
way
are
that
in
it
trouble.
starts. I love the fact that it's just one harebrained guy who's just like,
Here we go!
Hey, great aim, though. I know he accidentally fired his arrow, but that was some incredible aim. He smokes the orc right where Gimli says their armor is weak under the shoulder and at the neck, and he hits him right in the neck. But then the orcs are kind of doing almost a New Zealand tribute. It's like a haka type like chant to kind of intimidate their enemies. Which when you hear about how they actually filmed Helm's Deep, which sounds fascinating. It was all night shooting. It was over a month long. It was super intense, stunts on stunts. And actually, before the fights to get fired up, the New Zealand stuntmen for the elves and New Zealand stuntmen for the orcs, they would haka at each other. So they would actually be doing like war chants. And that's really when Viggo got so close with the stunt teams. His commitment, his effort in those scenes, that you hear the stunties talk about it, they're just obsessed with him. They think he's a man. And that's when they also started the weird tradition of headbutting each other, which they would later go on to do on the red carpets and stuff and almost knock each other out. They just walk up and straight up, just boom, just headbutt each other head to head.
Wasn't there also a lot of butt fondling on the set whenever they were filming that? I know there was.
No, I mean, look, if in athletics, and that's pretty athletic shooting, you slap a lot of ass. So, yeah, I don't think it's crazy to think that there was a lot of ass slapping going on in the Helm's Deep scenes.
So the Helm's Deep has a very author-esque, Old English, cannon, catapults and grappling hooks and ladders on walls.
Yeah, siege weapons that I thought at the time. I guess I just never come across them in history. But I mean, they're definitely real life counterparts. So that's how you attack a castle wall. To me, it was all very novel at the time when I saw it. I was like, whoa, look at those ladders with the hooks. And then
and the one guy who gets
they got the giant grapples when they're like bringing up the huge ladders. And I don't know how Legolas only ends up with 43 kills when he shoots down the one.
Whenever a movie has something like that, like, you've got to get into the castle. That's always a thing that I'm just like, how are you going to get in there? Are you going to get in there convincingly?
No, I mean, that's
and
why
they do a really good job.
Yes, that's why castles are so effective. And even Theoden's feeling himself at the beginning of the fight where he's like, hey, is this all you got?
Yeah.
Y'all are crashing. Like, yeah, we can defend this. But then Saruman's trickery. Saruman just straight up has a bomb.
Yeah.
He has a bomb by an Olympic torchman who gets shot multiple times and still makes his way.
I love the berserkers.
Yeah.
I love the orc berserkers. They have them at the top of each ladder. No armor, kind of in the ancient Viking berserker sense. They've got these super long swords. You can tell they're like shroomed out of their mind, just thirsty for blood. But yeah, he takes 2 arrows before diving to set off the bomb and blow up the wall, which is a great miniature shot. That blown up wall is actually just a miniature wall being blown up.
Fantastic miniature that they actually blew up with all the styrofoam and everything.
It blew up all that styrofoam.
Mm-hmm.
How sad.
Yeah, so I thought that was I thought that was really well done. They started to break through, and within it, like, so what stood out to y'all from the action itself? Because it really is just a giant 30-minute extended action.
Which
scene.
That's the thing about this, and I mean the same with Return of the King. In Return of the King, we get like an hour long.
Battle of Pelennor feels like an hour. Yeah,
and with all that stuff, movies where there is a fight at the end, that type of stuff gets boring really easily. This one, there's so much going on, and you care about everyone that's going on. Fellowship in this movie, I know we've said is not as good, but it's still great, and you do. There's so much. It's great. There's something invested in everything that's going on. Whenever even the orcs are trying to break in, which is a trope that happens in all of these types of things. It's very interesting.
Well,
I'm with it the whole time.
I wonder if like this is maybe where some of the dragging around Helm's Deep when they're showing you the little culvert, the little water hole.
See, I love that part.
And they're showing you the little like this is where that really pays off, like all that setup, because you know kind of the castle layout. And so when they're showing
actually
things,
goes through it point by point.
yes, and so when they're showing things like, okay, now they're attacking that door, the door to the keep, and I love Aragorn and Gimli sneaking around the side, and Gimli's comedic relief is throughout
and
here.
goes back to the tossing.
There's so much personality going on.
What are they saying? And he's like, what does he say? Shall I pick you up and need me to find you a box? At the very beginning, Legolas says to him, and he starts laughing, which is great. It's kind of that gallows humor. And then when he tells Aragorn, you'll have to toss me. don't tell the elf. It's also, by extension, one of the few times I think you really get an idea of how dwarves could fight, because when they pull away after that scene where they jump onto the walkway that leads up to the door, that's a CG Gimli fighting, and he's moving fast. Because a lot of times John Rhys Davies fighting's a little stiff looking, because he's in all like this makeup and everything, and he doesn't pack a lot of punch like some of the other guys. CG Gimli is just clearing out orcs with his axe, just like sweeping them away. So within the battle things, I think that stands out. How do y'all feel about the now infamous Legolas shield slide?
I think
the internet has turned on it.
I think
the internet has held it up.
It's a little bit silly.
The internet has held it up as one of the examples of why Peter Jackson ended up going like so over the top in later movies.
In the Fellowship, I thought it was a little bit funny, not badly so. Whenever he's got all the arrows and it's like it holds it so long that it's kind of like the Star Wars.
Yeah.
But if you hold that for like 4 more seconds, and this is kind of like Legolas gets another little thing. It's kind of like, whoa, look at how badass he is. Oh, he's still being badass. Like, oh yeah, he is real. Look at how badass he is still.
That doesn't
take me out of it.
That was not as big of a thing for me as the CGI, like grabbing at the horse underneath and pulling yourself up on.
Why did he pull himself up the opposite direction? Why couldn't he have just done like a simple jump up?
It was a CGI shot.
No, I know, but I'm saying like
he makes around 2 times.
But I'm saying, but even from a physics standpoint, he swings and swings back. Like it would have made more sense just for him to swing on. I almost mentioned that earlier.
Maybe
but
it's just peacocking.
Look, it's basically just to show that these elves and Legolas, and they talk about this, when they develop their fighting style, they want them to be almost telepathic, almost superhuman. And yeah, they've been alive for thousands of years. So of course, they're going to be abnormally gifted. As a kid, and I still like it, but maybe that's why as a kid, I freaking love the shield slide. I thought it was so cool.
The thing is,
he's going down the stairs. He's popping off arrows. He even kicks the shield off at the end, and it sticks in the guy. Like, I thought it was awesome.
People who have a problem with that are the same people who have a problem with a cross-guard lightsaber.
Yeah, exactly. Which I like. I like
it's
it.
really
cross-guard
cool.
lightsaber.
No, cross-guard lightsaber. How Kylo's people got pissed about Kylo's having like the guard on
I
it.
thought that was cool.
And
I feel like that'd be
practically
useful.
how important it is. In a series where people get their limbs chopped off all the time. But
exactly.
I mean, it's a cool shot. It's effective.
I think it's fun, man. During these action scenes, to avoid the monotony that Nathan's talking about, you gotta have these like set piece type of fun.
It might be
moments.
the type of thing when you take away, you realize, oh no, that was good that was there. But I get so nervous even watching skateboard videos of guys going down the stairs. Like that freaks me out. And this, I get a little bit of like, oh, be careful.
Well, and then Return of the King, Legolas goes to the next level and he rides down the Mummakill trunk after he's basically killed the entire
that part's
Mummakill
really
himself.
cool.
Exactly.
I love that part.
But so that's the escalation from the first movie to then this move to then that move. Like it just gets bigger and grander, really, like the series does as a whole.
And can we really blame them when we have a Fast and the Furious franchise where we're like,
I still have not seen one of those movies.
From like doing a movie on the moon. I mean, really,
like a certain element still has to be fun. And Peter Jackson, as a movie maker, is like, okay, I can do whatever I want with this action scene. I want to have Legolas do some really badass shit. Like it's that simple.
And I love the counting between the two and the competition
and that's one of my favorite parts of the books.
That.
Now that is not in the original version though. Now they have some counting scenes, but the final scene where he's sitting on Gimli's like, this is pretty number 43, and then Legolas shoots him to say that he's tied. He's still twitching. Their relationship is the funniest part of all these movies.
And then the sun coming through the window, and then all seems lost, and then the sun comes through the window, and the realization of, wait, what day is it?
Yeah, and so to me, so eventually, so everything keeps going poorly. They keep getting pushed back, and now they're in the throne room. And I love this moment because this is the hopeless, what do you do when things look their darkness? I always say this, right? What defines you as a purpose, what defines you as a person, is not the adversity you're met with, it's how do you respond to it. And so when this cast of
How do
characters,
we respond to it?
with
T-Bob?
this cast of characters that we love, when they're backed into a wall,
Amen.
it's as dark as it's ever been. They are going to die. What do? Ride out with me. Right? Let's make such an end. They will sing of it for ages. Ride out with me against all odds. Everything else be damned. Yeah, we're going to die. I'm not going to die here sniveling in the corner. I'm going to go out on my own terms. Gimli goes and blows the horn.
So how does that not apply to, coaches trying to cross the 50-yard line in national championship games?
I don't know what. No, I don't know what this means now.
Shouldn't they change their strategy in order to try and
They should.
breach the 50?
You should almost go out leaving everything on the table. Instead of conservative, right? Yeah, exactly,
that's
right?
something.
But
yes, Gimli and the horns and
but
the
that
shaking.
whole speech, the ride out for death, it's just, I thought it's great. And really cool special effect, too, when they ride out and just knocking everyone over.
And then Gandalf showing up and the white light, again, shining down. And
He's
the rescuing. The only thing that's missing is the Eagles. Everything else is just perfect.
Yeah, even though, like I said, I called it a Deus Ex Machina earlier. And the reason why it's not, though, is because Deus Ex Machina, like the Eagles, is generally unasked for. And it's like grace that is unasked for, right? It's almost very Christian theme
Grace
in that regard.
finds you. Yeah.
Yes. This
Go
is
and ask your dad for money. You can't do it all the time.
See, this is more like asking your dad for money. This is more purposeful. Gandalf knew he had to hunt down Éomer, knew he had to bring him back. He does. It all times out. Bam, orcs get smashed. Now, the orcs were defeated then. They just got pushed into a retreat. But then we learn.
Oh, yeah, but
Oh, wait, all of a sudden there's a forest out there. Where did that forest come from? And now we see all the threads coming back together. The impact of Merry and
great.
Pippin.
Whenever you see the trees going, and it does tie everything up so nicely. And
So the impact of Merry and Pippin, for those that don't know, Merry and Pippin, they build the trees. The Ents say they don't want to fight. They force him to look at Isengard. Treebeard rallies the troops. They fight Isengard, but they also move all of Fangor, and they shepherd the trees outside of Helm's Deep so that when the orcs retreat, they retreat into the trees and they get slaughtered to an orc. Just absolutely destroyed. And it, I guess.
I do love the part wherever the trees are going to destroy what Saruman or Isengard.
Okay, so that's what I want to talk about next. So we're kind of done with Helm's Deep then, right? Anything else to add to Helm's Deep?
No.
Right? I mean, Gandalf, the charge looks great. Visually, it's all very stunning.
It's all like a little bit of slow motion there. Looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah. Steep hill.
I did what is it? What is the last one? War for the Planet of the Apes? That last fight reminds me a lot of the one in Two Towers.
Yeah.
The design of it reminds me a lot of the one from Helm's Deep.
Okay, so what did y'all think about the Ents raiding Isengard?
Will Ferrell. Right, there's just something on TV that looks very funny. The what?
The Ents raiding Isengard.
I like that. I really enjoyed. I just the visual of them going and destroying everything, all of the water, everything flooding, and Christopher Lee does a great job.
Another miniature shot, by the way.
Oh,
nature.
I think you can tell a little bit, like whenever the water goes down into the cave, it looks a little bit like that, but it still works. It's probably because whenever that thing happens, I'm like, how does it look?
Funny. I'll talk about that because the tree that gets set on fire.
I love that part. That detail is hilarious.
That detail is hilarious.
Then he puts himself out.
But that detail was put in there because New Line gave them a note saying that they were afraid that children were going to be scared that this tree had been set on fire and they had to figure out a way to put him out.
Yeah, he's good. He's got the water.
And so
I thought that was so funny.
And nature coming back. You ripped all these trees up to make all of these things. And
it's not exactly subtle, but it is a very clear
nature
line.
Coming back to bite you.
Yes, exactly. Like nature winning out against industrialization in the end.
In the book, that's supposed to lead to all the people from Helm's Deep riding to Isengard.
Which happens, though, in the extended Return of the King.
But it was supposed to be at the end of Two Towers.
Yeah.
And in the editing process, they moved it over.
Well, also Shelob, right? I mean, Shelob's also end of Two Towers in the book as well. Right. But you know what? I don't mind that they did that, though, because this was a good ending point. Mm-hmm. Because you have the climax of Helm's Deep. You have the climax of the Ents winning. And then we have the third story climax where Faramir brings Frodo to Osgiliath. He goes face to face with the Felt Beast. He lets him go. I would be
scene
remiss.
whenever he goes to almost
give the ring up. Yeah.
And almost kill
and
Sam.
Who tackles him to stop him from giving the ring up? Sam does. And then he almost kills Sam, and that is when Sam gives what is my favorite cinematic speech of all time.
Which is emblematic of this shot where he had Gollum by the point of his sword earlier in the film. Now he has Sam at the point of his sword.
Direct echoes. Right. But when Sam is giving that speech about how a new day must rise and why do people in the stories keep going? Because there's no hope and everything. I've used it on radio so many times because I think it is so perfect for when you're in your lowest moment, trying to keep hope against hope. Like Aomer says earlier, do not trust a hope. It is forsaken in these lands. Well, Sam's even in a more hope-forsaken place, and he still manages to find that positivity. And when you juxtapose it with the shots of the Ints winning and the Helm's Deep winning, you get a little bit of hope in what has been mostly a hopeless movie.
Right. And then,
right? Like it's a bit of a happy ending in a very grim and dour movie.
Right. And then the water cave, the underground tunnels, which don't exist in the book, but they utilize them as a way to get them out of Minas Tirith.
Yeah.
And then,
or they're in Osgiliath, but whatever.
Osgiliath.
Yes.
And then of course the shot is the echo of the shot from the first movie, the end. It shows you how much closer they are to where they need to get to. And of course, Smeagol having the conversation with himself, say she will take care of it.
Oh no, I love the way that it wraps up the movie with how Gollum is plotting.
Which, if you don't know the books, you have no idea who she is.
Yeah, no, I don't know the books.
Did y'all? Yeah, and I didn't either. I did not read these books until after I saw each movie. Did y'all hear when? Okay. So hold on before I get ahead of myself. So that's kind of the story then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that we missed? We wrapped up. We hit our 3 climaxes.
When watching it this time, people usually say that there are quite a few endings, like false endings.
No, that's Return of the King mainly.
People don't say that about Two Towers.
I don't think so.
People say that you
I
kill off
didn't
too
feel
many. You do the fake deaths, too many characters.
I could
you do it
definitely
with
see
two
that.
different characters. You do it with Aragorn, and you do it with Pippin.
Yeah.
Multiple times throughout the movie. But even then, they address that in the audio commentary as well, where they just say, look, if you take some of these changes, some of these additions and that we made to the book, into the movie, if you take that out, think about the perpetualization of how that changes everything from there on. And so, it's the main complaint I hear about Two Towers is just that it's long, that it's not as entertaining until you get to Helm's Deep, and that it's a lot of exposition.
Yeah, like I said, I think my main critique of this
movie.
It's the middle movie, and I just don't. I don't love the middle portion. Like, even if you look at our conversation today, we spent an hour on kind of the first third.
Right. Jackson says
and then we
himself,
rush through this middle third, and then we spend a lot of time on the back third.
Jackson says himself at the end, this movie fell through the cracks. We were 4 to 6 weeks behind.
Yeah.
We were trying to rush this. Like this, we were spending so much time on Fellowship and so much time on perfecting the climax for Return of the King that this movie kind of got lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
I don't care about your excuses, Peter.
There weren't nearly as many reshoots on Two Towers. There weren't nearly as many pickups on Two Towers. It was just, it was the middle chapter, and it got left behind.
And there's also just from the pure story perspective that, like you said, the calm before the storm scene, you have 3 different characters going through calm before the storm. Or 3 different storylines. When you look at Merry and Pippin trying to convince Treebeard to act, Frodo and Sam getting kidnapped, and then the journey to Helm's Deep. It's just they all line up for kind of a long lull. But outside of that, I think the extended edition is much better than the original theatrical cut. And it does, ultimately, it accomplishes the goal, which is it moves the story further and it sets everything up for the third movie.
Which is long.
Well, that's the thing. It's so long, and I haven't seen it in a while, but that's always been my favorite one. It just, man, it knocks it out of the park constantly. Yeah. See, I think even though it's got a lot of endings.
I told someone this yesterday. Return of the King is the best movie because it is a truly triumphant ending in filmmaking. To tie up all these threads as satisfactorily as it does is masterful. It's so well executed. It's the best movie because it's the culmination of this Herculean effort. My favorite is still Fellowship, I think.
Yeah. No, and I get that. I enjoyed watching Fellowship this time so much more.
Fellowship's the most rewatchable.
I enjoyed rewatching Fellowship a lot more than rewatching this one, honestly.
Fellowship is rewatchable.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'd go watch Fellowship again. It would be a task to have to watch 2 hours.
And Return of the King is
it's really
the grand
long.
finale. So.
No, and it really, pulling off Return of the King, even with how good Fellowship is what makes it one of the few franchises that lives as a classic. And you can tell by the time it's done, like what you just achieved, you're going to go down in cinematic history.
It's why it won 11 out of 11 Oscars. Like, Return of the King didn't win all those Oscars just for Return of the King.
Yeah.
Like, I firmly believe in my heart that Peter Jackson won Best Director because of the years of work
Well,
because
of,
of
course,
the whole
Sofia
body.
Coppola is an infinitely better director than Peter Jackson, but she got shut out.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
Virgin Suicides.
Virgin Suicides is better
Lost
than
in
anything in
Translation.
Lord of the Rings. I'm not so much a fan of Lost in
I
Translation.
love Lost in Translation.
This is the type of crap that I have to deal with on a Lord of the Rings podcast.
The Bling Ring.
All right, couple questions
King
for
Kong
y'all.
is still way better than
I
anything
know we're
in
at
Lord of
2
the
hours
Rings.
here, but I'm giving y'all a couple more minutes.
Jack Black is a better actor than Viggo Mortensen.
I love Jack Black's new YouTube channel, by the way. You should check
What?
it out if you haven't. Yeah, it's very funny. He makes a
I
video every
refuse
Friday.
to support anything Jack Black is in due to his connection
What?
to the
What?
his connection to the thing that must not be named that has a video game and is
the Harvey Weinstein video game?
no the
I thought that's what he's talking about.
the Jumanji movie that
Ah,
is the abomination to all mankind.
Oh my God. Okay, Jumanji's fun, and Jack Black is the best part of Jumanji. He's incredible.
I wouldn't say it's that bad. He's in Bernie.
No.
He's-
Brian has weird hangups on Jumanji. Brian is so deep in the Jumanji lore that he feels like the movie severely disrespected the original Jumanji lore, and that it breaks it for
Oh,
him.
so you're like deep in. You love the original Jumanji.
I believe that Alan Parrish's whole legacy was destroyed.
You
But
will wax poetic on Jumanji
Like-
for entirely too long if you
and
allow it to.
Ghostbusters and anything else. I have my own rabbit holes. But go ahead.
Okay, did y'all catch when is it the Wilhelm scream, the famous scream that's in
Oh,
all the
yeah,
movies?
yeah.
Did y'all catch when it was?
Isn't it? It's in the fight with the orcs. It's an orc that does it. Is it whenever?
No, it's not an orc that does it.
Oh, I must have mentioned.
Nope.
Oh, is it at the Battle
I mean,
of
this
Helm's
is a
Deep?
very. I did not tell you. It is in Battle of Helm's Deep.
Someone's thrown over the wall, right?
There you go. The elf catches a crossbow to the chest, and he falls face first on the wall, and you're like, ah! The
Yeah.
very famous. This is where I learned about it. Was watching the making of. This is where I learned about the Wilhelm scream. And then, did you catch the Peter Jackson cameo this time?
Yes, I did.
Throwing
Wait.
the rock.
Yeah, throwing the rock in.
Oh, I missed it.
Yeah, he's throwing the rock when they're throwing the rocks down on the orcs who are
he
bringing
actually
the
hit
battering
somebody.
ram. Yeah, when they're bringing the battering ram up to the wall.
My little brother's become a nerd earlier than I did, and I was watching this with him, and he loves the Wilhelm scream. And whenever it came
no
in, his
way.
eyes like lit up, and they're like, "Oh, there it is! It's in this."
That's awesome, man. That's incredible. Shout out to whoever made that Wilhelm scream.
So hopefully we are not, 2 months after from doing another.
Yeah, this next one should be quicker.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
next one
because
should be quicker.
whenever I finished Two Towers, I was so ready, and I don't think I saw Two Towers in theaters, but I can only imagine, even though it's just a year, I was so ready to just start Return of the King.
Yeah, no, I know. You want to see where he's going.
I cry. I know. Last time I saw it, I've seen it so many times, but there are like 3 times. I cry 3 times at least in Return of the King, and I'm excited to do it again.
Really?
Oh yeah. Oh, it's so tragic.
The only
Whenever
part that
they
moved
go
me
into
to tears in
Mordor.
Two Towers is the Theoden scene really got me. And then, when Frodo tells Sam to turn away in the next movie, that's always very emotional. Final question: do elves
Poop?
like yes, the thing that I tweeted yesterday? But everybody thought I meant like Christmas elves. No, I mean like Lord of the Rings high elves. Do they
poop?
Do they poop? Can you imagine
I don't want to.
Arwen or Elrond? Like, I can't even imagine them farting, much less having an actual bowel movement.
I don't want to picture Kate Blanchett as Galadriel going to the bathroom.
I mean,
That's just-
so people have, that's a kind of funny thing, right? People have enough problems with this question of like, do women poop or whatever, blah, but it's just like one of those cultural jokes that people make. But like, I really don't think elves do. I've thought about it a lot, and I think that their digestive systems, and they eat such like a leafy diet or something that it works differently, and I think it just like, they probably just secrete their nutrients through their skin or something.
Yeah.
Like just wafts into the air.
Yeah, maybe their bodies just use everything.
I mean, yeah, exactly, right? You can't see it, can you?
Maybe they just don't have. They probably just don't even have assholes.
Honestly,
probably don't.
Honestly, I would not be. You could tell me an elf didn't have a butthole, and I would not be surprised at all.
Huh?
Yeah. So there you go. Little food for thought. If you made it to the end of this 2-hour journey,
Has
that's
this
your,
been 2 hours?
yeah, oh yeah. We started
Congratulations.
about 2 hours 10 minutes ago.
Congratulations to all 44 people who are watching this and have made it all the way through.
Yes,
Huh.
yes.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
More people watch this than I thought would, and I don't know how many downloads we had on the podcast, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll keep pushing it, man. We'll push the first one now. But whatever.
Thank you,
Thank you to
T-Bob,
everyone
for
who
the,
joined us.
for the
I do want to
opportunity.
do one on.
Absolutely.
Well, also, okay, in case it ends up being that we end up taking a month to do the next one, the fact that the Oscars are probably not going to have the cinematography awards broadcast is disgusting, and also the fact that there isn't a category for stunt people is also disgusting.
Yes.
So
All right, we'll do a post-show episode where you can get your Oscar anger off your chest.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay.
They're really not going to show the award for cinematography?
They changed the process to where they're going to
It's
cut
a
some.
visual medium, and we're not seeing the award for the person who actually handles the camera.
Well, so basically what happens is the Academy's looking for ways to cut down on the telecast. And so they're only going to do 2 songs.
they're not going to cut sound or something.
And they're cutting some other awards. And they are not offering a uninterrupted stream. So like the ideal
what?
the ideal would be that there would be a
Wait, in a day and age where everything is moving towards streaming, they're literally going the opposite direction and not doing it under.
so
I
there's
don't know
not going to
what's
be a
going on
commercial
with
free stream. So these awards are going to be given out while the commercials are going on the national telecast.
Dumbasses. Like,
So there's
what?
there's not a
What?
there's not a commercial free there's not a commercial free stream where you'll be able to watch this the whole thing.
It'll just be
live.
like, welcome back, and just so you know,
No,
yeah, the
During
Cold
the
War
commercial
won.
break, we gave the best cinematography Oscar to Inarritu.
Look, once you announce the wrong Best Picture winner, like, you can do whatever you want from then on.
And what
like
sucks-
you can't get worse. Like, what?
Roma is going to clean up, and if Roma actually wins Best Cinematographer, that will be the first time that a director acted as the cinematographer
And the writer.
won, and the writer, and won for that role. So it might be Oscar making history, and they're not going to broadcast it.
Unbelievable.
All right.
That's crazy. All right, but we could complain about that all day. T-Bob Hebert, Nathan Velasquez, producer for Off the Bench. Also, Nathan, do you want to plug into your video production businesses or anything?
Foxtail Productions is a premier video production company in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Also, I'm on Twitter at Incredible Mr. Nat.
Allegedly. BCW Tiger Fan on Twitter. My man Brian Wood, hosts of Movies on the Brain podcast. Plug whatever you want.
We are on iTunes at Movies on the Brain. I am at BCW Tiger Fan. We talk movies and nerdum all the time.
Also,
Yeah.
T-Bob has a daughter. So
And I do have a daughter. Shout out to baby Alice. She is currently getting.
oh, she's still a baby, yeah.
So I have read. She's about to be 1. I have read her The Hobbit out loud. I've read her Sorcerer's Stone out loud, and we are about halfway through Fellowship out loud
Nice.
right now. Yeah.
All
So
right.
everybody have a great day. We love you. We love Lord of the Rings, and we hope you enjoyed this. And we'll be back for Return of the King. See y'all later.